And we are live.
Are we? Are we
We
really?
are. That's right. It's Lorebeards 40,000.
I feel alive. Do you feel alive?
So far.
We keep living through her historic events, and I have never felt more alive in my life.
You know who else is really good at staying alive?
Phoenix Lords.
The Phoenix Lords are really good at staying alive.
How good does a shirt have to be that thousands upon thousands of Eldar have worn it and become the same person?
It has to be a pretty darn good suit of armor. Although there's some interesting fan theories about how that functions. Hello, everybody. We see some chats coming in, so we are live. They can hear us. We exist on the internet as people doing a thing.
We are doing a thing.
Who are we, Alexis?
That is a good question. It took me many years to figure that out about myself. It never gets old. Anyway,
never does.
Hi everyone, I'm Norn Queen Alexis, and welcome to Lorebeards 40k. I am a massive nerd. I picked up Warhammer 40k back in 4th edition and decided that is my entire personality. I play way too many games, I read way too many books, and I paint way too many miniatures. Currently, I'm working on 2 Defilers. I am a commissioned painter, a Viking reenactor. I was in a commercial. I am so happy about that. I can now officially state I am an actress on a commercial.
Oh, you need to send me a link to that.
Yeah, it's the second commercial I've ever been in, and I am technically I can write down that I'm a stunt performer too.
Wow, that's great.
Now, I've only been in one commercial, but I'm so happy about that.
Hi, everybody.
So, Ross, who are you?
My name is Ross Watson, and back in the late 90s, around 1999, I got into Warhammer 40k, thought it was amazing, and I decided to make it everyone's problem. And that's why I worked on all the Warhammer 40k role-playing games. I was on the White Dwarf team for 2 years. I've broken Alexis.
Oh.
Did it go up your nose?
Yes.
I'm so sorry. And I've worked on some 40k video games as well, so that's where all my 40k knowledge comes from. And we're excited to be here today to talk about some really cool people, some of my favorite people in all of the grim darkness of the far future.
So, Ross, before we start, I just have one thing to ask, because it's silly. If a Phoenix Lord dies in space,
which they often do,
some Eldar has to be chosen to go to it and find their armor and get it. But before we get into that, what the heck is a Phoenix Lord?
I'm so glad you asked. And before we talk about who the Phoenix Lords are, or what they are even, we have to go back and talk about who the Aeldari are.
It leads back to the War in Heaven.
It all leads back to the War in Heaven. Although there was a whole episode we did on the War in Heaven, so go check that out.
I'll summarize the War in Heaven really quickly. Frogs didn't give skeletons chemotherapy.
I hate how accurate that is. I literally hate how accurate
everyone in the galaxy's problem.
Indeed. Okay, so the Aeldari, who are often called the Eldar in lore, are basically space elves. They are an ancient and highly psychic alien race in Warhammer 40,000. Usually, they were once the dominant species in the galaxy. Post War in Heaven, for a very long time, they were the dominant species. But now they exist as scattered survivor cultures clinging to a dying civilization. The Aeldari, they are tall, graceful, and extremely long-lived humanoids. They have intense psychic potential. They field powerful psykers in battle, advanced energy weapons, warp-enabled technology, webway travel. The webway, very briefly, is a series of tubes that runs adjacent to the warp, but not, it's kind of through the warp, but apart from it. So it allows for very swift interstellar travel if you use the webway. The Eldar inherited this from the old ones after the War in Heaven. Aeldari culture is defined by elegance, artistry, and a near fatal obsession with sensation and emotion, which directly led to their ruin. Their ancient empire collapsed in an event called the Fall of the Eldar, where millennia of hedonism birthed the chaos god Slaanesh, whose psychic scream vaporized billions of Eldari and created a massive warp storm called the Eye of Terror. Every Eldari soul burns very brightly in the warp, which makes them especially vulnerable to the hunger of Slaanesh. And Slaanesh does, in fact, hunger for all Eldari souls. So much of the Eldari's behavior and survival strategies are built around not being devoured by Slaanesh.
Jeez, a chaos god just wants to have like hobbies.
There are, but
the one thing that I really, really do love about the Eldari is if you look at them, they do have a very much almost Eastern-ish influence on their artistry, their tapestry, and a lot of people do refer to them as the Power Rangers.
So, a funny note, I was playing Total War Warhammer 3 the other day, and I was mentioning this theory of yours, this feeling that they're based heavily on Eastern philosophies and symbols and things like
The
that.
Path of the Bushido.
Right. And the High Elves, for example, in Total War and the Old World, their homeland of Ulthuan has a central section that is, from above, distinctly a yin-yang.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was something you would be interested to know.
It is. It is. I absolutely love it.
So the surviving Aeldari are basically broken down into 6 main groups. There's the Craftworld Eldar, or the Asuryani. These are refugees who live on continent-sized world ships. They use spirit stones and the infinity circuit to trap their souls and follow strict psychic paths of behavior to avoid repeating the mistakes of the past and to avoid being eaten by Slaanesh. There's the Drukhari, also called the Dark Eldar. These are very ruthless, sadistic raiders of the Webway. They come from a city called Cormorag, which is deep within the Webway, and they stave off the decay, the Slaanesh-driven decay of their soul by torturing and feeding on the suffering of others. Then
I always think of Cormorag as just, it's New Jersey.
Wow. This is from a New Yorker.
I am.
So the Harlequins, the third faction, these are mystic performers and warriors sworn to the Laughing God, one of the few remaining living Eldar gods. They dance across the Webway. They intervene in great events tied to the fate of the Eldari. They are very important to the overall story of the Eldari, but not really a big deal for today specifically. There's the Exodites. These are the Eldari who fled the Empire's decadence long before the fall, and now
ride dinosaurs.
Amongst we know very little about them, but we do know that they live in primitive, idyllic worlds as hunter-gatherers guided by their world spirit, which is like an infinity circuit, but it's like incorporated into the planet. Then there's the Corsairs, which are exiles and outcasts, and they follow what's called the path of the outcast, I believe, from the craft. In terms of the craft world, like if the craft worlders look at them, they're following the path of the outcast. The Corsairs probably don't consider themselves following any path, because Corsairs are space pirates. They dance on the line between Craftworld and Drukhari. They're very kind of in the middle of that. And then lastly, there's the Ynnari, which is a brand new subgroup of Eldar that come from all these different factions, and they are followers of the brand new Eldar god Iniad, and they follow Iniad's prophet or prophetess. Her name is Yvraine.
And GW has yet to do anything major with them in any way, shape, or form.
It's been a while. So that's the short version of who the Eldari are. Hey, we've got a super chat. Boom, Ice Veins. What would be your rough estimates for the Eldari entire population in the hundreds of millions or billions?
So, okay. All right. So I once sat down and ran the numbers for this, for the Eldar to have a structured military the population of the craft worlds has to be in the millions. Eldar take, I think, a few dozen years to actually have a child, and for their recruitment, they have to like have actual children to eventually recruit into their military. So they do need to have millions of people on their craft worlds at any one time to defend their craft world, as well as make all of the aspect warriors. I don't think that I would say that they're in the billions, to because okay, the galaxy is a huge place, and 40K has at least inhabitable 1 million worlds that the Imperium controls. Now that's not counting all of the worlds in the Milky Way. The Eldar do control a few worlds, but it's very hit and miss. But I would say that they're probably in like maybe the hundreds of millions at best. But that still makes them extremely rare. Like Eldar, when they attack something, it's kind of out of the blue because no one expects it.
So, there is no official source on this. Any numbers we give are purely speculative and come from our own understanding of the lore and kind of headcanon about the whole thing. So, having said that, my estimate would be in the low billions for all Aeldari.
Way lower than me.
For all Aeldari everywhere.
Okay.
For all Aeldari everywhere, I would say, somewhere in the single digits of billions, probably. There's probably at least 1 billion in Cormorag. There's probably at least 1 billion spread across the craft worlds. There's probably, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
The Exodite worlds probably have between 1 and 10 million per world, which is not very much. The craft worlds probably have hundreds of millions alone. Yeah, it gets a little crazy when you start thinking about the Harlequins, because Harlequins in the Webway can encompass entire systems. Like Cormorag's called the Dark City, but it's much bigger than a city. It is vast. It has trapped suns, multiple suns to light it. So yeah, this is tough, but if you want to pin me down, I'm going to say somewhere in the neighborhood of the low billions.
I would agree with that because they do need to maintain that military somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we don't know because GW was smart and stopped giving us exact numbers because somebody like me would figure out how thick tank armor is and figure out that, hey, a modern day rocket sails right through it.
I can actually speak to this with some authority. I was working with Games Workshop, and we were discussing a lot of these, very specific questions about how things work. And I was talking to a couple of the guys that wrote a lot of the Horus Heresy Black books, like Alan Bly and John French. And we were talking about how the Forge World books that they came out with for their Imperial armor, and how there were these tank nerds who were just like, hey, there's too many rivets on this one wheel in this illustration. And the Games Workshop guys are like, that's not what we do. We don't sit around and count rivets. We talk about how all the awesome battles that this tank was in and who built it and what it's for. That's what we're interested in. We're not interested in how many rivets are on the wheel. So sometimes these minutia discussions, frankly, there may never be an answer. But it's fun to speculate, and that's why this shows like this exists, because we're happy to sit and say here's where the number we think lies. Why do you think it is in the low billions, Alexis?
So my reasoning is the ships themselves are a bit bigger than the average moon. Like the craft world ships are huge. They are massive. Like you can land multiple ships next to them. Okay? A standard Aeldari ship houses about 1,000 Eldar, like one of their big transport vessels. Considering that can transport about 1,000, and the reason that I say that is because it's similar in size to Imperial vessels that can transport roughly that amount. I would say that their craft world has to have at least a few. It has to be a planet's population to keep their military operational because of all the losses they suffer.
Well,
Like-
it's important. It's important to point out, though, that some losses can be restored because a dead Eldar whose spirit stone is recovered can be placed into various wraith constructs, and that's Wraith Guard, Wraith Lords, Wraith Blades. There's fighter craft. There's, in fact, entire starships that these things can continue to serve on.
Yeah, but I always view it as like the Imperium's view on like, does a dreadnought count as a person? And the answer is no. Do the Aeldari Wraith constructs count as Aeldari to the Aeldari? I would almost say they would want to say yes, but they know the answer is no.
Well, so in the novels, they certainly treat them with some respect, but there is a distance between living Aeldari and the Wraith construct.
Yeah,
they are considered different enough, but still part of the Aeldari in toto.
Well, yeah. I view it the same way that Space Marines view a dreadnought. It's an honored ancestor, and it's absolutely spectacular to see one and everything, and it's awe-inspiring. But at the end of the day, it's still a vehicle.
It's going to depend on a lot of the craft world may depend on this. Also, like the Space Marine chapter might depend on how they see.
Yeah, of course.
Dreadnoughts. But anyway, I think that's as far as we can go on that question. So let's take another one. Lord Bourne, Yadari, what is my purpose? Games Workshop. You serve as a narrative foil for the return of Rapute Gilliman, Yadari. Oh my God! Very good. Rick and Morty reference.
It's so true, though. It is so true. And it annoys me because, like, there are dark wraith constructs in the lore. They're not common, and they're only in Gav Thorpe books. And they're just, like, bad wraith constructs. Like, they're just evil. And, like, that could be the Ynnari wraith constructs. And they could be, like, wicked spirits that they brought back from the Aeldari and put into the wraith constructs, like Drukhari, that are now wraiths. That could be super cool. And GW is just like, nah, we don't want them to have more than 3 models. That's too many.
Well, Inari is going to have a role to play in some of the things we're going to discuss today. At least a very minor role, but still a role. And good one, Lord Vorn. Appreciate you, buddy. Corinne Shima, thank you so much for the super chat. Do the Craftworlders have breeding programs? Not as far as I'm aware.
So sort of. It's not a program. But in certain lore, it takes the Eldar a very, very long time to have a kid, and it takes them multiple times of getting together to have a kid. The Eldar are actually cursed with longevity, which means that because of one of their gods gave them longevity, but in exchange they have no libido or anything. They're almost all asexual, and it's very weird. It's like a minor paragraph in a book somewhere, and that's it.
I can say with some authority that the Eldar do enjoy romance and sex amongst themselves.
Oh yeah, it's after the fall of the Eldar, when Slaanesh was born, that this happened.
I'm still going to say with some authority that the Eldari definitely enjoy sex and romance amongst themselves. Yeah. It's not like they're all asexual.
No. Like, especially the Corsairs. The Corsairs love it.
And the Drukhari. And the Harlequins. And I mean, the only one
weird that the Drukhari can't have true-born Drukhari offspring. They also suffer with that problem. It's very hard for them to have true-born. This is actually all relevant to the Phoenix Lords, by the way. I want to make sure that people know this. Because Eldar have such a hard time making more Eldar, they have to have had made a way to gain immortality in another means. They had to use spirit stones, and they had to use special armor suits that transfer their soul into another being. This is actually still related to the Phoenix Lords. I want to make sure people know that. But we're just going up the ladder. We're at the bottom right now.
You probably could accuse the Craftworlders of being more emotionally restrained.
Oh yeah.
And Craftworld on the Craftworlds, the Asuryani, conception is often described as highly planned, as something that they plan, rather than they just do it. And it's also mentioned that the Craftworlders sometimes see it as a duty to reproduce rather than a casual act of reproduction, because the strong passions of mating can, of course, attract Slaaneish's interest. So, that is all having been said. All that having been said, there are certainly paths amongst the Craftworlders that do, in fact, embrace passion, and there's a path of the midwife, for example, is one of the things you can do on a Craftworld. So it does happen. It's a little more stratified on a Craftworld basis. Now, the Drukhari have a very specific thing, and I'll get into that in a second. But go ahead.
I am so glad you're here to be the adult, because I would have called it the path of the breeder. It's all just like, I'm not gonna say it.
In the Drukhari, the Drukhari heavily rely on artificial reproduction. Most of their population, what are called the lowborn, come from amniotic tubes where artificial conception is performed. They're essentially cloned or vat grown in labs by the homunculi. There are the trueborn. Now, these are your naturally born Aeldari, and they exist in Drukhari society as well. There's just a lot fewer of them. That is what we know about Aeldari reproduction. And it is not a topic I want to spend a great deal of time on. Let's just put it that way. Oh, Biofoot, I love you, buddy. He says, what % of the Phoenix Lords are juggalos?
Okay.
Malkin Ra is a juggalo.
If we include, so me and Ross have a connective theory that Eldred is actually like a Phoenix Lord of the Farseers. We know that he gets it on, and that's about it.
Oh my god. And we got another one from Biofoot. The magical breeding ritual of let's crop open these Zimas and see what that thing do. Oh my god, love you so much.
They sing it.
So
oh my god, it's all just R&B.
I should point out that the best way to support the channel and keep the content coming for Lorebeards are the super chats. We are very grateful for all of them. Thank you so much for supporting us. The proceeds directly impact our lives. So just letting you know that. All right. So with a brief digression over reproductive habits, we are now ready to talk about the Craftworlds Asuryani.
Thanks, super chat.
The Asuryani are the ones that are most relevant for the Phoenix Lords. So we should briefly talk about who they are. They're the most quote unquote traditional of the Eldar surviving factions. They are disciplined. They are the doomed survivors of their own ancient empire. They live aboard vast continent-sized starships called Craftworlds. These drift through the galaxy as they try to stave off extinction and thwart the forces arrayed against them. The Asuryani are basically, these are kind of like the Amish of the old Eldari civilization. They saw the debauchery and corruption coming and decided to go away from it. They boarded their Craftworlds and left. They are the keepers of the oldest traditions of the Eldari civilization, whereas the Drukhari represent more of the right before the fall debauchery, hedonism end of that scale. So the Asuryani, they preserve a lot of their culture and technology from that pre-fall civilization aboard their Craftworlds. They have strong, like all Eldari, they have very strong natural psychic talent, and they have a rigid, almost monastic lifestyle centered around specialized paths.
Nice.
Excuse me. And the paths are organized into very specific disciplines, like Path of the Warrior, Path of the Artisan, Path of the Farseer.
Path of the Singer.
Path of the Singer, Path of the Midwife.
Path of the breeder.
Path of the mourner. The mourning is actually a path. Like if you want to do that. These paths are very strict and disciplined because the idea is if you hyper focus, which Aeldari are prone to doing, but if you hyper focus on this one aspect of your life, then you are avoiding emotional extremes that could lead to what happened to the fall of the Eldar. Now, you can have multiple paths during your life. You can be Path of the Warrior for a while and then switch over to Path of the Artisan and then switch over to Path of the Musician if you wanted to. You can live that life. Some Eldari get trapped upon their paths. These become known as exarchs of that individual path. But above even them, however, are the Phoenix Lords, which we will talk about very briefly, very soon, I should say. I want to finish off this brief of the Craftworld Aeldari. There's a how do the Craftworld Aeldari survive and keep their soul safe from Slaanesh, Alexis?
So. Eldar have this magical jewel. It is called a soul stone. They also have specialized suits that also do this exact thing. But anyway, the Eldar have this special jewel that is typically in the style of like a ruby colored, but its color is not really important. It is just a jewel. This jewel has the ability that at the end of your life, when your physical body is destroyed enough that you can't go on anymore, it's almost like an emergency. Suck your soul out into it and let your body die. Your soul lives on within this soul stone. It's kind of like a USB port for your soul. Then what happens is other Eldar take that and return it to the Infinity Circuit so that your soul can live on within the ship, Craftworld in this case, Craftworld's Infinity Circuit, which means that you are put into a basically a Call of Duty lobby with a whole bunch of other dead Eldar. I wish I was joking. It's kind of that. Your essence is put into a device that stores souls. And when the Eldari need your soul again, they once again put a soul into the soul stone and attach it to, say, a wraith construct, an airplane. Sometimes they attach it to walls. I don't know why. Maybe you're a light switch. But you will see them scattered throughout Aeldari architecture and all sorts of things. I view that as an emergency in case an Eldar dies of a heart attack nearby. It just pulls their soul in, but that's just me. But the soul stone is super important because when it's reattached to an armor that a living being is in, the soul stone can release the Eldari soul within the soul of the occupant of the armor. Now, I do want to be specific with this because it can overtake human souls, and technically the soul stone can also absorb human souls, but that's not what we're talking about today. Eldari's souls are typically kept in these jewels. Eldar carry several of them on their being at any one time in case one is destroyed. They still have access to other soul stones all over their body. Soul stones cannot be replicated as far as we know, and Eldar can only get them from Crone worlds, which are Eldar worlds that have fallen or are within the warp storms that created Slaanesh. Eldar will hire a whole bunch of other beings to go and do that. Usually Corsairs, human rogue traders, or orcs sometimes, to go and retrieve all these jewels in exchange for, various Eldari technologies. I think that's pretty much all that they do. They're also a power source, and you can actually use them in rituals to sacrifice the soul for a huge power up to your psychic abilities. Eldrad did that a whole bunch of times. So did Devrain.
Well, Eldrad carries a staff that has the spirit stones of an entire council of Farseers in it, which is one of the reasons why he's so freaking strong.
Yeah. Could you imagine if others knew about that?
Oh, I'm pretty sure he's not hiding it. Let's put it that way. There is no single Asuryani empire. Unlike the Drukhari, who basically have like the one. They basically almost all of them live in Cormorag, and they're all kind of under Azrael Vect, who is the lord of the city. The Asuryani they have dozens of independent craft worlds. Bealtan, Ulthlay, Iandan, just to name a few. Each craft world has its own council, its own agenda. They are unified mainly by the idea of shared survival and devotion to their path-based philosophy. To outsiders, Aeldari in general, and especially Craftworld Aeldari, are seen as aloof, enigmatic, and manipulative. They're often called perfidious.
Eldar being manipulative? What? That has never been a plot point in every single Dawn of War game.
The Imperium considers them perfidious Eldar. It is quite possible, however, that the Imperium just is a little blind and believes that all the Drakari raiders are also the same thing and are blaming some of that on the Craftworld. Who knows? But the manipulation that is part of the Craftworld's philosophy is a real thing. They are often willing to sacrifice entire worlds if it preserves even a few Aeldari lives.
I think the lowest that I've ever seen was saving 4 Eldar lives, and they sacrificed an entire human world.
Which is very Aeldari. Okay, but that is all the background out of the way. Now we can talk about the actual thing we came to talk about: the Phoenix Lords.
Oh heck yeah! Bow, bow, bow. Anyway,
yeah, we need a Vuvuzela. The Phoenix Lords. These are amongst the most iconic and mythologically rich figures in the entire setting. They are warrior saints or demigods. I mean, I would say warrior saint is probably the closest thing.
So a lot of people compare them to Primarchs in terms of like, power level and that nonsense. I always compare them to like chapter masters, like in terms of like where they are in their respective fields. They're like the most respected of their particular path because they are the top of their path.
Well, and it's even more granular than that because each of the Phoenix Lords is in fact the apotheosis of Path of the Warrior, just different versions of Path of the Warrior. Like if you want to say they're all lords of heavy metal, and then they're all just individual types of heavy metal underneath that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see here. They are immortal wandering champions who each embody a single facet of their fractured war god, Kayla Menchikane.
Now, this is also why I always describe them as the path of the Bushido, because they are Ronins. They are samurais that wander around, come when they're needed, don't heed a master,
Now, the Phoenix Lords were once just regular mortal Aeldari warriors of extraordinary skill, but they transcended that. They transcended even the idea of death itself by binding their souls into their armor. And they became legends that persist across millennia because the Phoenix Lords have been around and active ever since the fall of the Eldar, so at least 10,000 years, if not more.
So to go over some of the models that have the name, the Phoenix Lord names, because a lot of you might be able to recognize some of the GW models themselves that are Phoenix Lords. We have Azraman, we have Baharoth, we have Fugin, we have Jenzar. I'm not going to name the Forge-World one because that one doesn't exist anymore. It exists in the lore, but doesn't have a model that's still current. Karandraz, who is still technically the same model. Mungden Ra and Lycus.
Yeah, and there's even more than that, which we will get into. The Phoenix Lords are simultaneously historical figures, living weapons, and religious icons. That's why I called them warrior saints. Yeah. They're kind of the last guardians of the Asuryani civilization, and part of the reason they're called the Asuryani is the fact because Asurian is one of the Phoenix Lords. He's kind of their patron saint, if you will. But to understand the Phoenix Lords, we have to understand the cataclysm that made them necessary, the fall of the Eldar. So Go ahead, Alexis.
So, what happens when you goon a god into existence? Well, it turns out you goon too closely to the sun. No,
It
it's
was
you mog too closely to the sun, young gooner. I can't remember the exact quote, but it's from a brain rot Skyrim game. No,
so
but
the
jokes aside, the Eldari created a chaos god which ate their souls, and in response, the Eldar tried to. Well, we don't know the exact thing that spawned the Phoenix Lords. We know that they were made in response.
there is a story that one of the Eldari during the fall of the Eldar, witnessed the end of his world firsthand and watched as the demons consumed civilization around him. His name was Iliathan. And according to the story, he survived by taking refuge in a temple to the dead god Asurian, which was a god, the god Asurian. And the lingering divine presence of this god repelled the demonic hordes. Now, during the fall of the Eldar, almost all of the gods of the Eldar were destroyed. So this is a big deal that there was some kind of essence left. And so Asurian is the patron god of the Asuryani. Iliathan took the name Asurman, which means the hand of the Asur, or the hand of God, if you want to think of it that way.
Oh my god, it's a Fist of the North Star reference.
I mean, a little. And he led a bunch of survivors, including a almost feral child who, according to the legend, would someday become Jane Czar. And he led them to safety on a barren world that he named Asur. And there he founded the first aspect shrine, devised the path of the warrior, which is a rigorous martial and philosophical discipline designed to harness the Eldari's natural ferocity while at the same time preventing emotional extremes from attracting Slaanesh. This is very much a Vulcan reference. This is absolutely like a little Star Trek Vulcan.
There's so many different references in it. One, the Iliad is mentioned by a character's name.
Yeah,
Iliathan. Who hid in a temple of a dead god.
Yeah, Iliathan. Yeah, it's the Iliad. Yeah, absolutely. So Asurman.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, please.
I guarantee you, somebody at Games Workshop at the time of writing this definitely snuck in a Fist of the North Star reference, because it wouldn't be the first.
It certainly wouldn't. So Asurman on this planet, he trained his most gifted disciples, and these would eventually become known as the Asuria, or the children of the Asur. And these warriors went on to found their own shrines, developing distinct martial specializations drawn from the many facets of Khaine's war nature. They became known as the first Phoenix Lords, and the title itself reflects their mythological role. They're warriors who can be reborn after their apparent death, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Now, Alexis, please explain why Khaine has so many different facets of, well, who Khaine is and why he has so many different facets of his nature.
So, for one, it's my last name, so it's badass. Just saying. Khaine is the god, the bloody-handed god, or the god of murder, and he fights in like every different style, every different facet of battle is a facet of Khaine, and how he goes to war itself, whether it be sneaky, fighting you, honor, just straight up murder in the dark. And each one of the Phoenix Lord's paths represent a way that Khaine has gone to war.
Now, Khaine he's one of the few surviving gods of the Aeldari. However, he did not survive in his normal form. He was, in fact, shattered into a large number of different shards of essence.
It always comes back to being sharded.
Each of these shards came to rest at the heart of a Craftworld, where they lie in a special chamber and await to be awakened as the avatar of Khaine, which you may have heard of and is an actual model you can field. So, I mean, one of the reasons I love Warhammer 40,000 so much is the Craftworld Aeldari. They were one of my first armies. And when somebody described to me, he's like, hey, there's these space elves, and they have killer clowns from outer space, and they power their robots with the souls of their dead. and they have guns that can send you to hell, and they have like just all of these wild things. And I was like, oh my god, that sounds amazing, and I have to know more about it. So the Aeldari are near and dear to my heart. I have a T-shirt. I'm wearing my Aeldari T-shirt today. So
I mean, I have their biggest fan tattooed on my arm.
That's right. Slaanesh is the biggest fan. So the mechanics of the Phoenix Lord's immortality is probably the most distinctive thing about them. It's also very philosophically layered, which is pretty cool. Whenever a Phoenix Lord is slain in battle, their physical body may be utterly destroyed, but the soul of the original Phoenix Lord endures. It is sealed within a powerful spirit stone embedded in their armor, their Phoenix armor. And then the armor lies dormant, waiting for another Eldar to come along and claim it. There are things called Aeldari Exarchs. These are warriors who have become consumed by the path of the warrior. They can no longer leave it. Exarchs are the ones that are called by visions or dreams. They are led to discover the fallen armor, to put it on, and then a profound merging takes place where the Phoenix Lord's accumulated spirit, which is composed of the original founder's soul plus every Exarch who's previously worn the armor, melds with its new host.
The one thing that I absolutely love is how they describe the souls within the armor being that of like stars in space and like not storms, like nebulas of souls just coming together to form the being that is the Phoenix Lord. Because it's not I am the Phoenix Lord, it's like we are Venom.
Yeah. The dominant personality of the original Phoenix Lord reasserts itself and overwrites, I should say, most of the host's individual identity, though the new host's memories and experiences are absorbed into the greater whole. The Eldar consider this both a tragic sacrifice and a honorable, even heroic apotheosis. The Exarchs who don the armor are already trapped forever on the path of the warrior. They will never return to normal Aeldari life, regardless. But by becoming a Phoenix Lord, by becoming a vessel for a Phoenix Lord, really, they join something far greater than themselves. They become a living legacy that spans 10,000 years or more. So in this way, the Phoenix Lords are described as immortal revenants, the same person reborn repeatedly, carrying the weight of ages and becoming a gestalt of all the wearers, or of all those who have chosen to don the suit in the past. Nobody knows precisely how many Phoenix Lords exist. Some are seen so rarely that scholars question whether they're real at all. Others have vanished for millennia only to reappear in moments of great need.
Some have died thousands of years ago only to just reappear.
It has happened. It is also unknown how many have perished permanently. Whether, because you have to assume that some armors left behind are lying undiscovered on a hostile planet or lost in the depths of space. There are almost certainly some suits that are still waiting Exarchs who may never arrive.
Mm-hmm. Some might just be in the collection of like Trazeen.
Right. For example, Trace in the Infinite may have some.
Some rogue traders might have a few just lying around. In fact, we do know that rogue traders do seek out soul stones, and the soul stones can sometimes talk to them, which is really weird.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we could probably do an episode on each individual Phoenix Lord, but we will discuss them as a group and individually here, at least as far as an overview.
Now, I do have a question for you, Ross.
Hmm.
What do you think would happen if a human put on a Phoenix Lord's armor?
I don't know, and I think unless that human was extremely psychically talented, I think their personality would probably be destroyed because the strength of the soul of the Phoenix Lord is immense, and they have so many other souls attached to them and part of their makeup that I feel like they would overwhelm and crush any human soul. And even a incredibly psychically talented one might only be able to fight them off long enough to get out of the suit
Yeah.
maybe.
But do you think that the Phoenix Lord would take over the human to get back to the craft world?
If they could, yeah. If that
Right?
would certainly be the goal if they could. I don't know. Yeah, it's a tough
The
call. So I don't know.
the reason that I bring this up is because in a Rogue Trader short story, not Rogue Trader first edition, Rogue Trader as in a Rogue Trader who does rogue trading.
So
I
this is a
there is
Black Library short story published
yes,
in a collection somewhere.
yes. A Soulstone does take over a Rogue Trader, and the Rogue Trader hands it back, and then when they hand it back, they're just like, "What?" Because the Eldar was in control of their body for a bit.
Lich Lord Kiers asked the question. He says, "Which Phoenix Lord do we know the most about?" That's most likely Asserman.
Yeah, I would say Asserman, or maybe like second best would be like Fugan, Jinzar, and Mungden Ra in like a combo there.
They are the big ones. But let's start with Asserman, shall we?
Yeah, the Phoenix Lord, who is the master of everything. Definitely not the Ultramarine of them.
The Hand of the Asur. He is the first and greatest of the Phoenix Lords. The fountainhead from which all others flow. He is the one who founded the Dire Avengers Temple. Dire Avengers are a type of aspect warrior. We have a whole episode on aspect warriors, so you can go check that out if you want to learn about all the aspect warriors. We will be name checking aspect warriors, but we will not be getting too deep into what they are because we did a whole episode on this already. So where was I? So yes, the Dire Avengers. They are the most numerous and balanced of all the aspect shrines. They're the most tactically flexible. And these warriors serve as disciplined defenders and versatile soldiers. As Asserman is the only Phoenix Lord who taught multiple aspects, as all the other Phoenix Lords are his students, or were his students, I should say.
They follow the Codex Asserman.
He wields a legendary weapon called the Sword of Asur, which is a dire sword, dire swords are a particular type of Aeldari weapon that have a very strong psychic resonance within them. It contains the spirit of his murdered brother, Theseus.
So Theseus.
Theseus, yeah, would be that's the German. Sorry, the Greek character Theseus. Yeah. Unlike most weapons, the Sword of the Asur is one of only a small number known to be capable of permanently destroying demons.
So when you said warrior saints, there are only in the Imperium. There are only very few characters who can obliterate demons. Celestine being one of them, and
Asserman
she
being
is
another.
Straight up a holy being. So when you compared them to like the saints of Aeldari, you were spot on.
And Jake Wu says Asserman has a book too. Yes, he does. A couple of them, I think, or he's mentioned in another one that we are going to talk about as well. Asserman's done some weird stuff, y'all. We're gonna get into it.
Yeah.
So Asserman is he is depicted as the most measured and balanced of the Phoenix Lords. He's a guardian figure who has visited more Craftworlds than any other, which is so he's raised Dire Avengers shrines on almost every known Craftworld that exists. Across 10,000 years of history, Asserman has been the Phoenix Lord most consistently present in the struggles of the Aeldari. He's battled demons. He's intervened in Craftworld conflicts. He has served as an anchor for entire warrior traditions that his order represents. He also briefly ran a soup kitchen.
I'm sorry, what? Hold on.
Yeah.
That sounds like some kind of lunacy that I come up with. What?
Yeah, I found this out today and I was like, wait, what? So there is a short story, The Last Days of Ector by Guy Haley. And in this story, Asserman secretly runs an underground humanitarian group called The Hand on a beleaguered Imperial world. It's a hive world. Sorry, Ector is a hive world. It's a recruiting planet, in fact, for the Crimson Castellans Space Marines. So there's that. But it's under threat from a Tyranid incursion, and the people living on it were in a state of fear and poverty and instability. So as this crisis was ramping up, this mysterious organization called the Hand begins operating in the lower hive and the most desperate districts of Ector. It's described to Imperium authorities as a charitable group. They openly distribute food, medicine, and information to the sick and the poor and the orphans of that region. Its public face was a human spokesperson called Tolliver. He presented the group as a benevolent, non-rebellious relief network. No overt cult doctrines, just a helping hand.
That screams Gene Stealer cult.
Right? I mean, like, if I was an Inquisitor, I'd be like, okay, we need to get rid of that right away.
Yep.
But the local law enforcement on Ector, they dismissed the Hand as being bankrolled by some guilt-ridden spire lord. They assumed it was another top-down charity project. And the Hand, oddly enough, was very good at spotting and warning about Tyranid infestors and infiltrators, like Gene Stealer cultists.
Three-armed Larry comes in. Hey, guys! Gene Stealer!
The twist at the end of the story is revealed that the Hand is actually Asserman, operating in a human disguise.
He had his beanie on.
And this is pretty wild because he's a Phoenix Lord. His entire life is devoted to the belief that a warrior must be a shield and a guardian in peace. And he's out here living that philosophy amongst humans rather than his own kind, which is surprising. And he didn't show up to fight the Tyranids. He was just stabilizing the civilian situation, providing humanitarian aid and early warning services so that the Imperial defenders would have something to defend.
He literally built up their entire, like, he boosted their morale so much they could fight them off. And thus not needing to sacrifice more Aeldari lives.
It's very strange because a Phoenix Lord is typically depicted in the lore as these mythic warrior saints striding through the battlefield, not as undercover aid workers in the lower hive. And he himself, Asserman, the Hand of the Asur, he's a grim architect of the path of the warrior, but here he is running a charity. And it resembles the kind of thing you'd expect from a missionary or a volunteer rather than a warlord of space elves, which it was surprising.
That's crazy.
It was a very, very interesting little thing. And there's a lot of speculation as to what he was up to and why. I mean, a quiet act of mercy is not beyond the Phoenix Lords. They are not typically depicted as corrupted or evil or even apathetic. They tend to be very involved as opposed to most of their Craftworld Aeldari.
Now, keep in mind they are still, for the most part, evil because it's 40k and
there's no good guys in 40k. But the warrior saints of the Phoenix Lords, they are not typically on the evilist side of that scale. They are not anywhere close to where the Jakari live or the Chaos Space Marines live. So it's not out of character is what I'm trying to say. It's not out of character for Asserman to be like, you know what, I'm gonna do this act of mercy. But it's possible that he was trying to build some trust and goodwill, or it's possible he was just trying to manipulate events so that this Imperial world did not fall too quickly. Who knows? It's just very strange and unusual. I thought it was worth mentioning in the context of Asserman because he's a.
I'm just imagining he has this like super divine blade on his side. He's got his beanie on. I do keep mentioning the beanie because there is a whole joke in I want to say who wrote the Path books? It's Geoff Thorpe, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in one of those books, Eldar have to go in disguise and they wear this special hat that hides their ears. It's a beanie. They put on a beanie.
That's a reference to Vulcans in Star Trek who do the same exact thing when they want to blend in. So there's a lot of Vulcans from Star Trek in the Aeldari, just to be clear. So now that's Asserman. Now we're going to talk about
if that's where he lived and that's why the Eldar couldn't find him.
Well, he was certainly there for a while. What's another Phoenix Lord we should talk about, Alexis?
Let's go with Fugan, the Burning Lance.
I pronounce it Fuegan, but I'm sure it's one or the other.
I mean, look, I'm from like the New York side of the galaxy. You're from like not New York side, so we have different accents.
Wow. I've lived in both the South and the Midwest most of my life, so
See, north, correct. I'm
very brief.
joking.
I did live a few years on the East Coast, but that did not. I was south of Baltimore, so.
Oh, okay.
So Fuegan, he's the Burning Lance. He is the Phoenix Lord of the Fire Dragons aspect warriors. They are masters of melta weapons and anti-armor warfare. They also like to carry flamers because flames and dragons are a big part of their whole thing.
It is one of the weirdest things that they still have melta guns. Because for those of you that don't know, this is Warhammer, the tabletop game lore from back in the day. The Eldar and the Imperium and almost all factions in Warhammer shared weapons for the longest time, up until 2nd edition. A lot of armies just shared weapons. And then they started changing it, like bolt pistols became sluggas for the orcs. The bolter became like the shuriken catapult, took it as its replacement, but the shuriken catapult did exist at the time, but then it was made specifically the Eldar weapon. Las cannons were something that the Eldar had. Same with las guns and melta guns. And out of all of them, Fugan managed to keep a melta gun. And it's an Eldari melta weapon, but it's still funny that it's a melta gun.
Melta weapons and plasma weapons are more advanced than the Imperiums, but they are very, very similar in how they operate. The Eldari also carry flamers. The Fire Dragon specifically can carry flamers. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting crossover between the Eldari and the Imperium, including las guns and las weaponry.
Yep.
Which we will talk about later. But for the Fuegan and the Fire Dragons, Fuegan, the dragon is a symbol in Aeldari theology that represents absolute destruction, consuming everything in scorching fire. Fuegan embodies this through his philosophy of harmony through obliteration. He eliminates threats to the Aeldari so completely and systematically that they can never return. That's his purpose.
You would think that he would have the sword that obliterates demons.
Now, he has a special role in Aeldari theology, because, and perhaps the most significant role of any Phoenix Lord. There is this philosophy, a prophetic sacred text, a prophecy, if you will, and it's called the Asuryata. And according to the Asuryata, there will be an event called the Rhana Dandra, which is kind of like the end times of the Aeldari. And Fuegan, according to this text, Fuegan will be the one who gathers all the Phoenix Lords together for this final battle.
Oh my God. Could you imagine like one of them gets the call from Fuegan and is just like, are we doing it? And
are we on? Is this happening?
It's just Jane Czar. Girl, are we doing this? Are you calling everyone?
What's up?
No, it's just me. Oh, I guess I'll come, but like I was expecting everyone else there. It's kind of you keep talking about it. I wanted the complete obliteration.
According to the Asuryata, Fuegan will also be the last Phoenix Lord to fall in the final battle.
I wonder if he knows who the first to fall is.
That's a good question. But whether
I bet he doesn't tell anybody.
Whether or not his role is a cause for pride or sorrow is a question that the Aeldari Farseers have to wrestle with constantly. Because the threads of fate seem to be leading towards this Rhana Dandra. In very recent history, Fuegan fought alongside Eldrad Ulthran, which is another character we have a whole... Do we have an episode? I think we have a whole episode on Eldrad, don't we? Yeah, we have a whole episode on Eldrad.
I want to say so, yeah.
So go check out that episode if you want to learn more about Eldrad. And Fuegan fought alongside him on this world called Haran Shamash. Together, they destroyed a whole bunch of demons before disappearing into the webway. Fuegan has since wandered the webway, which is, again, this labyrinthine, maze-like series of tubes that travels throughout the galaxy and exists within the warp, but apart from it. It's a sealed system of tubes. And so he's been hunting the webway, and any demons that get into the webway, Fuegan's job is to get rid of them, basically. And then he emerges occasionally from the webway to fight in battles of critical importance. And that's true of all the Phoenix Lords. If there's a battle of critical importance, it's very likely that one of the Phoenix Lords, or maybe more, will show up.
He's like a rat catcher of demons.
In a way, yes. Pick another one.
All right. Well, let's go with one that no one really cares about. Baharoth.
Behareth, the Cry of the Wind. That's how I pronounce his name, is Behareth. Yep. He is the Phoenix Lord of the Swooping Hawks. These are aspect warriors who rain laser fire from above before swooping in to strike with bombs and blades. When we said lasguns, the Swooping Hawks wield an Aeldari version of a lasgun. It's called the Las Blaster, I believe.
Yep.
And it's better. It's higher technology, but it's still it's still basically a lasgun. So Behareth is described as the most vibrant and youthful and dynamic of the Phoenix Lords. He exists in stark contrast to another Phoenix Lord called Malgan Ra, who is a very grim and dark, edgelordy, if you will. So Behareth is like the opposite. Behareth is the flashy and flamboyant one. He's the where Malgan Ra is kind of stationary and implacable, Behareth is always moving and a unstoppable force. And we have a Behareth fanboy in the chat. We have Mr. Mike of the Grail says, "I care about Behareth. I care. Yay! He has fans. Woo!" Behareth is considered by some to be the greatest of Asserman's students.
Which is really funny that no one really remembers him.
Behareth and the Swooping Hawks. First of all, Swooping Hawks are one of the rarest to see on the tabletop. I've been an Aeldari player, and they're rare to see on the tabletop.
In recent history, they are action monkeys. Like they just uppy downy and action monkeys, so they get seen a lot. But they only do objectives. They don't kill anything.
So more recently they've been popular, but for a very long time they were not popular.
Yeah.
And Games Workshop has written very, very little about them and written very, very little about Behareth. He's kind of like the White Scars of the Space Marines. He gets kind of sidelined and forgotten about a lot.
Oh man, yeah, he is the White Scar.
So he wields a weapon called the Shiny Blade, which has said to have been forged in the dying flames of a supernova. I don't know if that's true, but it's a really nice weapon, nevertheless.
I mean, in all fairness, Aeldari did have technology that did cause supernovas.
Behareth is said to have died and been reborn more than any other Phoenix Lord. Perhaps an occupational hazard of leading aerial assaults of warriors who plunge directly to the most dangerous parts of the battle.
And drop grenades as they land.
And are also pretty fragile.
Mm-hmm.
The Swooping Hawks are like one of the most fragile hit-and-run forces I can think of. So there you go. According to the prophecy of the Rhana Dandra, the Assyriata, Behareth is one of the Phoenix Lords who is specifically foretold to die in that final battle.
Okay, that's pretty neato burrito.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a good writer could make me care about him. Right now, I kind of don't, but I would like a good writer to make me care.
We do have a super chat.
Yes, we do. IceFanes88, thank you so much. Has the Emperor of Mankind, beloved by all, ever met a Phoenix Lord? And if not, how do you think that meeting would go?
So, kind of. If you count Eldred, then yes. But if not, I don't think there is a meeting ever between a Phoenix Lord, at least any of the named Phoenix Lords that have models and everything, and the Emperor that I know of. But if we're counting Eldred as a Phoenix Lord, then yes.
So interestingly enough, there is no recorded meeting between the Emperor and any Phoenix Lord. But here's a weird thought: is there is a Phoenix Lord we're going to talk about a little bit later called Ara. Oh, did we? Did we miss the super chat? Okay. Well, we can find that.
We did.
Get it up. We'll bring it up in just a second.
Yeah.
Ice Veins, just to answer your question, I think that the Emperor, if he was going to meet one, I think Ara, the father of Scorpions, would be a really interesting meeting. And quite possibly meeting the Emperor is maybe what caused Ara to leave the Asuryani and go to the Drukhari.
Wait, Ara?
Yeah. The Emperor could have also met Asurman. I mean, they would have had an interesting conversation.
So the Emperor's been around since the birth of humanity,
which is long before the Phoenix Lords.
Yes. So there is a good chance that some of them may have fled to him. But that's hypothetical. Just want to point that out.
I think if the Emperor and Asurman were to meet, they would have met. They could have met during the Great Crusade, certainly. At any point before the Horus Heresy, they could have met.
Do you know one would be really cool?
Mungden
Ra.
Malgan Ra, yeah.
That could have been a really cool meeting. Like, they just look at each other. So you're into the whole skeleton and skull aesthetic? The Emperor? Yes. That's pretty metal. Gonna say. Big fan.
I can see Asurman and the Emperor having a philosophical discussion or playing chess. Just sort of, scholar to scholar discussion kind of thing. But okay, Lord Vorin says the birth rate is so low because Eldrad keeps on reading the Skeins of Fate and telling the parents that their children will be a disappointment.
Oh, damn it.
It's your kids, Marty. Something's got to be done about your kids.
Oh, now I'm just sad.
Okay, are there any others that we missed, or is that the only one?
No, I think that was it. Unless Lord Vorin can find the one that I missed, I believe it was that one.
That was him. That was his that we missed. So sorry, Lord Vorin. Appreciate you bringing that up.
We got to go with the most popular Phoenix Lord, the one that is used constantly in 10th edition. Every single Aeldari list that I go against has this model in it, and they are absolutely a badass, and I'm trying to keep their gender a secret because it is Jenzar. Jenzar is hands down my favorite. Oh, is she my favorite? Because I really like Fugan.
Well, she does have the best name out of all of them. She is the Storm of Silence.
Yeah, it is a really metal name. She also has the Predator's weapon.
Well, long before it was the Predator's weapon, it was the weapon of Prince Colwyn in the film Krull.
Yeah.
Anybody, men of certain age out there, you know what I'm talking about. Anybody seen Krull? Jenzar, she holds a very unique place amongst the Phoenix Lords. She was the very first of the Asuria. She was the first disciple of Asurman. And she is described as the founder of the Howling Banshees Aspect Warriors. Originally, Jenzar was a feral child found by Asurman in the wreckage of the Fall of the Eldar. And she trained at his side to become the first exarch of her own aspect. Her martial philosophy emphasizes terrifying speed and the devastating use of the Banshee Mask. This is a psychosonic weapon that can augment the wearer's war cry to disorient enemies, or in Jenzar's hand, even liquefy their brains outright.
Yeah. Do you think that works on Sisters of Silence?
Probably, because they can still hear. It's psychosonic.
Yeah.
Because of the psychic part. Okay, yeah, maybe.
So
I don't
assume
know.
It would be the physical damage that they take.
Yeah, they're probably still. I mean, there's probably enough. The Venn diagram, like part of it is psychic, part of it is sonic, and the sonic part is absolutely going to affect them. So
yeah,
they're still going to suffer. It's just not going to be maybe to a slightly lesser degree. I don't know.
Now, one of the reasons, Ross, that I really like Jenzar is her rivalry with a very, very particular Drukhari. And you know exactly which one I'm talking about.
She has a rivalry with Lilith Hesperax.
Yep. Who also might be a Phoenix Lord. She is a theorized Phoenix Lord of the witch cult.
Exarch, certainly. I would agree that she's very similar to an Exarch.
Yeah.
However, remember that the Drukhari do not use the path system, and so they would never call themselves Exarchs.
Oh yeah, yeah. But it wouldn't be the first. It wouldn't be the first time they got a Phoenix Lord.
True, and we have done an episode on the witch cults of the Drukhari where we talk a little bit about Lilith Hesperax. You can go find that episode if you want to know about who we're talking about for Lilith Hesperax.
Now, I will state this right now. There is nothing stating that Lilith Hesperax is a Phoenix Lord. It is just it's one of those things where she's the head of a certain group. And if you were to be like, well, here's the Craftworld equivalent, you could put the pieces in place. It depends if Fugan calls her at the end of the month. If Fugan's like, hey, girl, get together. We're going to start blowing up demons.
There's no sign that Lilith Hesperax is immortal or can, or is a amalgamation of souls like the other Phoenix Lords. Yeah. But she's certainly very similar to an Exarch if you wanted to make that comparison.
Yeah. Now, we do know that those two are insanely good at fighting each other.
Well, they're insanely good at fighting in general.
Yeah. So, Lilith Hesperax holding her own against the Phoenix Lord is really impressive.
It is. It's one of the reasons why Lilith is just crazy awesome.
Now, do we want to talk about the guy that barely exists? The one of the Shadow Specters.
We are not done talking about Jane Czar by any stretch. We are not done talking about her by any stretch. She is very mercurial and fierce. She is the most maybe capricious Phoenix Lord.
She is a Capri Sun. Got it.
She in the recent lore, she is one of the most active Phoenix Lords in the 41st millennium. She's been deeply involved in any conflict against Slaanesh, and she allied herself with the Ynnari.
Yep.
Remember them? Remember the Ynnari? Games Workshop.
They were there.
We do. And the
Ynnari thing.
The Ynnari are the faction of Eldar devoted to the awakening of the sleeping god of the dead, Iniad. And Jane Czar has since distanced herself from that group a little bit, which is true also of Lilith Hesperax. They both have done this, which is interesting. But Jane Czar, she objects to the doctrine of sacrificing Eldari souls as a weapon against Slaanesh. She views that as a betrayal of everything that the Phoenix Lords stand for. So I feel the split between Jane Czar and the Ynnari may be permanent.
I think it's mostly permanent. Like I would put it up there with come the apocalypse.
Right. Yeah. Last resort. We'll join forces, but otherwise.
What about that crazy weapons she carries?
Oh, well, yes, we're going to talk about the weapons too. But she did have a notable encounter with Drazhar, the Master of Blades, who is a Drukhari incubus master, who may also be a Phoenix Lord. We're going to talk about him later. We're going to talk about him later.
A Drukhari Phoenix Lord?
Right. We're going to talk about him later. And Drazhar killed her and trapped her armor in a tainted region of Cormorag. She was reborn only when one of her surviving Howling Banshees managed to don the armor, which was a hell of a journey, and then was overwritten by the returning spirit of Jane Czar. And her weapons are pretty cool. Do you want to describe them?
I mean, it's a spear and a goddamn chakram.
That's the glaive.
Well, it's a giant shuriken is what she has.
Well, okay, so the Blade of Destruction is this two-handed spear.
It's a spear.
It's a power spear. She swings it in bloody arcs that are capable of cutting through multiple foes on a single charge. The Silent Death is her other weapon, which is a triple-bladed throwing weapon. It looks like the glaive from Krull. And the Silent Death, she can hurl it with lethal precision, and it can decapitate enemies at range. It always returns to her hand. It's like a boomerang. She throws it, it kills somebody, comes back to her hand.
Just like real life boomerangs.
It is one of the few weapons that has an Eldari name as well as a regular name. The Silent Death is also called the Janus Moor, which I think is really cool. So she is a swift and lethal assassin warrior of the Howling Banshees.
Now, one of the funny things that I do want to point out is Jinzar is known to have massive, massive amounts of hair. Okay? Like,
True.
we're talking it's longer than her entire body. And she stands at about, I want to say she stands a bit over 6.5 foot, but not like a Astartes size. Like, I think a standard Astartes is bigger than her, but she is definitely like bigger than an average human. So I want to say like bleh. But anyway, I still want to know how much hair that Howling Banshee that put on her armor
Right.
grew.
So
Like, was it an instantaneous thing?
A typical Aeldari is somewhere between 6.5 and 8 feet tall. They're very tall. The Phoenix Lords, their model scale makes them seem larger than life and much more taller and imposing than a standard Eldar. So probably somewhere close to 9 feet in height.
I always imagined that the models themselves being taller than everybody else wasn't an actual representation of their height, but their importance. Because if we go by like the model is taller, thus they're bigger, then the new Commissar Yarrick is bigger than Primaris Marines.
I mean, yeah, okay.
Or Sisters of Battle being bigger than Space Marines.
Not of Primaris though. Primaris fortunately got a lot.
Yeah, they got bigger.
They got still more in scale. Let's put it that way.
Yes. I do like the new scale of Warhammer. And speaking of the new Phoenix Lords in general, the new Phoenix Lords look incredible. And they got rid of that stupid big head thing that they had because they moved from heroic scale to 28 to 32 millimeter scale, which they use interchangeably depending on what they're making at the time. But like the new Phoenix Lords look absolutely incredible. All their weapons and everything look appropriate. Their weapons look intimidating. Their stances look dynamic. There are some really, really cool ones. And then there's Karandras, who's just standing there. Kind of just like, oh.
Would you like to talk about Karandras next?
You're right. Huh? Anyway. So Karandras is the striking scorpion Phoenix Lord. And well, that's how to describe them. They have chain swords, which is really cool. For a while, they had power. Well, they didn't have power fists. They had power gloves, and then that was changed to the scorpion claw. Which, when they moved from 2nd edition to 3rd edition, the Eldar regained a bunch of new names for their stuff. They kept chain sword for some reason, which is very non-Eldari as a weapon because it is a weapon that causes absolute sawing devastation. So versus like how elegant they are.
Yeah, but the striking scorpions are not the only ones to use them. The Storm Guardians also use chain swords.
Yes, the Storm Guardians use them, but the most famous ones that use them are the striking scorpions, I would say.
Agreed.
He looks the most like the Predator.
Karandras is the Phoenix Lord of the Striking Scorpions, and they are masters of infiltration and brutal melee combat. Now, Karandras is unique amongst the Phoenix Lords for one simple reason. He is not the original founder of his shrine.
Oh, yeah. Wasn't it like his brother or something that died?
So there's a figure shrouded in infamy known as Ara, the father of scorpions. Ara was the most sinister of all of Otsruman's disciples. His striking scorpion philosophy was that fury and rage should be your weapons, channeling violence against the enemies of the Aeldari. However, Ara eventually gave in to the very darkness that he had weaponized. In the most widely believed story, he turned against his own kind. He led demonic forces in an assault on Otsruman's shrine. He killed many of his fellow aspect warriors and then fled into the webway. Ara's greatest student was Karandras, and he emerged from the wreckage to assume the mantle of the Phoenix Lord for the Striking Scorpions. According to legend, these two, Ara and Karandras, they eventually fought a 17-day duel. Now that's one hell of a fight. In the ruins of Craftworld Xandros.
Now, I do want to point one thing out. As a Viking reenactor who does a lot of fighting, your average fight is anywhere between 6 and 20 seconds. and you were tired after 30 seconds of fighting. I can't imagine how exhausted those two must have been.
The
Also,
commonly
Ada.
yeah,
Anyway.
the commonly told version of the fight claims that Karandras was unable to defeat Ara and tricked him instead, using Ara's own bloodlust to cause him to kill his own students while Karandras escaped. However, there is a account in a story that the striking Scorpion Exarch who later donned Karandras' armor received a vision of what is a different version of that event, in which Karandras actually dealt a mortal wound to Ara, and then Ara fled because he was mortally wounded, and Karandras never corrected the record. So it's unclear at best which of these two stories is correct. But we do know that Ara fled. That's one thing we believe is true, is that Ara ran away. What became of Ara remains one of the most debated mysteries in Aeldari lore, period. There is strong circumstantial evidence that Drazhar, the Master of Blades, who is again the head of the Incubi warrior caste of the Drukhari, he resurrects exactly like a Phoenix Lord after being slain, which suggests very strongly that Drazhar and Ara are possibly the same entity, but it's never been definitively confirmed in the lore. Games Workshop has strongly implied this connection, but it's never confirmed it. I personally believe that Drazhar is Ara. Like if you were to ask me, like, where is Ara? He's Drazhar, Master of Blades, because Drazhar acts like a Phoenix Lord, has the abilities of a Phoenix Lord, and was able to defeat a Phoenix Lord. He was able to defeat Jane Zar in single combat, and that's not easy because Jane Zar is a total badass.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. That's my thinking on Ara. There's not a lot left to say about Karandras, honestly. He is the oldest model. The striking Scorpion Claw is interesting because it's a combination of a Shuriken Catapult and a Power Fist. It acts as both, which is pretty cool. And striking
he's got Mandy Blasters.
Yeah, the Mandy Blasters are also really cool. Whenever I field a kill team of Aeldari, I like to include a striking Scorpion Exarch because you don't expect to fight a Power Fist in an Eldar group. So it's kind of like, oh wait, what? Oh no. Anyway, so that's Karandras and his legend. Who should we talk about next?
The one that no one cares about. Not even GW anymore.
The Shade of Twilight?
Yeah.
Irilith? Irilith, I believe is how you pronounce it.
I always pronounce it like Irilith.
Irilith, yeah, that's how I pronounce it.
But this is one that I've never heard anyone at Games Workshop in any way, shape, or form. No audiobooks, no audio dramas, nothing. I couldn't find anything on this guy except the Doom of Mimir.
Yeah, he appeared in a Forge World book called The Doom of Mimir, which was all about the Corsairs, and it was introducing a new aspect warrior type called the Shadow Specters. And the Shadow Specters aspect shrine appears to have only existed on Craftworld Mimir. And drawn there by a prophetic vision, this guy called Irilith, I'm doing my best here to pronounce it, Irilith, the Shade of Twilight. He was drawn to there by a prophetic vision, and he founded his temple there. The Shadow Specters are ghost warriors. They are skilled in stealth and speed, and they have devastating energy discharges at range. They basically have little jetpacks that they can fly around on. Not quite as fast as Swooping Hawks, but similarly. And they carry weapons that have energy beams similar to that of a prism cannon that you would find on some of the Aeldari vehicles. So it's usually a high-powered laser of some kind, or high-powered energy beam.
The one thing that always bugged me about them, and why I don't think that they fit within Eldar, is because this is just the Scourge unit from Drukhari, just in Eldar. That's all it was. It was, here's an anti-tank rifle on a jump pack. Golly gee, who already does that? Oh, right, the Scourges.
Got a super chat from Nestor Vitumbra. Welcome, Nestor Vitumbra. The plastic incubi kit comes with a small Aura totem. Yes, this is Games Workshop once again referencing that connection. Thank you so much, Nestor Vitumbra. So Irilith, he's the Phoenix Lord we probably know the least about.
He's certainly there, and so is his Shadow Specters, and they must have slipped back into the shadows because they are gone.
Irilith led a great war host to the world of Bethelmay, and his goal was to preemptively destroy a civilization that was foreseen to threaten Mimera thousands of years in the future. So the Aeldari typically are led by their Farseers, Psykers who read the skeins of fate by casting runes. And a lot of Aeldari military actions are usually like, hey, I have foreseen X thing. We don't want X thing to happen. Therefore, go do Y, which then results in Z. So anyway,
sometimes it might be a trick by Slaanesh, which is weird that they get tricked by Slaanesh when seeing the future a lot.
So this mission that Irilith led his guys on, he never returned from. And with the Phoenix Lord was gone, the Shadow Spectre started to fall into decline. Mimera then later on, many thousands of years later, launched a major campaign to the ice world of Batalis III, alongside the Craftworlds of Alatok and a force of Eldar Corsairs. And their mission was to recover Irilith's armor. They succeeded, and the Phoenix Lord was reborn. His current status is listed as missing in recent sources, but which suggests his armor has been lost again. Like Alexis said, he is the least. Games Workshop has kind of backgrounded and sidelined him for decades at this point. So
yeah, they're not bringing them back.
I think it's been over 20 years.
It has. Well, hang on. Let me check the date of
at least around 20 years. Let's put it.
I want to say 2015. Yeah, 11 years.
11 years. Okay, it's over a decade. There you go.
Oh wait, no. This one was. Sorry, I was looking at second edition, the second printing of it. The first printing is in 2011. 14 years ago.
Yeah, that's a while. That is a while. Hey, we got a super chat from Leader 2457. Because I first saw weapons like Jane Czar's throwing weapon in Warframe. I didn't know that. In my head, I always see high-level Eldar move like Warframe players, which is hilarious and terrifying. Bullet jumping everywhere.
So, yeah, 100%. That is exactly how the Eldar move. Their invulnerable saves are typically their acrobatics. Like, they're literally dodging bullets. Like, Eldar are insanely hard to hit. Unless you're writing as a Space Marine as the main character. Then they're really easy to hit.
Well, Space Marines are famed for their accuracy, so...
Yeah, unless it's written from the Eldar point of view.
True. Would you like to hear about another Phoenix Lord that is hardly known anything about?
Are we going to talk about the Spooter?
No, that we know more about her than we know about this guy I'm about to mention.
Mungden Ra?
Nope.
Who?
That would be Drastanta, the Tempest of Starlight.
Oh, that's the one of the airplanes, right?
Nope, it's the Shining Spears. The Shining Spears Phoenix Lord is Drastanta. The Shining Spears are aspect warriors who ride jet bikes and strike with laser lances.
How did GW not make that character?
Don't know, but I can tell you what I know about them.
Okay.
Drastanta's lore identifies him as one of Asterman's acolytes who arrived too late to prevent catastrophic events. And in revenge, he slew a keeper of secrets known as Nikari using the Celestial Lance.
Nikari?
Yes, Nikari. Now Nikari is, of course, a demon in the old world as well. This is kind of like a Be'lakor similarity situation. There's Be'lakor in Warhammer Fantasy. There's Be'lakor in 40k. There's a Nikari in the old world. And there's a Nikari in 40k. So
now I want to know the Nikari lore in 40k. I guarantee it's nothing.
It's apparent. I don't know of any other reference to it. So after this battle where Drastanta killed Nikari, he vanished into the far reaches of the galaxy, bearing the crown of the seventh sky, which we don't know what that is, but it sounds awesome. And he's not been seen since. Now, Drastanta, as of current lore, is the only Phoenix Lord recorded as unambiguously missing. His armor has been unfound if it's lost. He was described as very proud and a lover of battle, traits that perhaps drove him into one final solitary campaign from which there was no return. But Games Workshop, of course, could always bring him back. Hey, here's Justanta. Remember, Shining Spears exist. Here's Justanta.
I mean, it makes total sense to make, like, because they made Wezdaka Gunsmack. They could make another really cool looking bike character. Hopefully not as lame as the White Scar one. But, you know, I guess for every one really cool biker, we got to get one really lame biker.
Let's see here. So there is another name of a like really minor character. This is in very old lore was possibly a Phoenix Lord, but I'm only going to mention it here as part of some really old lore. So it is very unlikely that this is actually a Phoenix Lord. I want to be very clear. It's just it was mentioned in older lore as a representation of pilots. Okay. There is the Crimson Hunters in the Aspect Warriors who are pilots. And in very old lore, there was a name called Amon Harakt that was given as a leader of pilots. But there's hardly any lore that exists at all for it. And there's no details about their current whereabouts or what what their weapons were or anything like that. I'm just going to mention Amon Harakt. It's very unlikely that it is or ever will be a Phoenix Lord, but in the past, it may have been in the older lore referenced. So that leads us to just one left, or two left, actually. We got two more left.
I also just looked up Nakari. That is some contradictory lore right there. It says that they were born as a human. They're a demon prince. They're a keeper of secrets. And they're a greater demon.
Which one is true?
And
who knows?
The trivia on the page is just like all of this is conflicting. So it sounds like the writers picked a common demon name of Slaanesh, and we're just like, it's this right now because I'm not going to look anything up.
Now, there is a Phoenix Lord that I know you're excited to talk about.
Oh? Is it Mungdin
Yes,
Ra?
it's Malgan Ra, the Harvester of Souls.
Mungdin Ra. I always say Mungdin Ra for some reason. It's Mungin Ra. Mungin Ra. Or Malgin Ra, however you want to say it. But Mungdin Ra is such a badass because he is just a skeleton. Like, he fits more to the aesthetic of the Harlequins than he does to the Eldar, in my opinion. I always viewed him as like, hey, this is what we want our dudes to look like. And then they were just like, well, we're not doing Harlequins right now, so just put them in with the Eldar. Mungdin Ra is a infamous Phoenix Lord from the perspective of Chaos Space Marines. He is horrifying to them because he is just absolutely devastating. And he swore an oath of vengeance against Abaddon. Except all of that was retconned. That didn't happen.
A purely one-sided rivalry with Abaddon. Yep. Spoiler.
Now, I do want to mention that.
No, there's the joke right there in the elevator. And he's like, "Do you remember me?" Says Malgan Ra. Abaddon's like, I don't even know who you are, dude.
But that source is like the Armageddon supplement book, and the ending of that book got retconned, which also includes Mungdin Ra swearing a blood oath against Abaddon. So some of his coolest lore is that it's been retconned.
Malgan Ra is the darkest and most solitary of the Phoenix Lords. He founded the Dark Reapers Temple of Aspect Shrine. While the other Assyria were learning arts of war from Assurmen, Malgan Ra was studying the blade. He was studying the Reaper blade, which is a scythe, basically. He was drawn to these very Baroque weapons, and he fashioned instruments of long-range death rather than melee, which is where most of the Phoenix Lords live. They live in close combat or melee. Malgan Ra was like, no, we're going to shoot from way far back. So he wields a thing called the Maugatar, which is a scythe-bladed shuriken cannon. Maugatar sounds like it should be a Gwar instrument, doesn't it?
It does. I also want to point out that Mungdan Ra wears skeletons all over him, has a trench coat on, and studied the blade.
Well, I think are you mixing them up with the Death Jesters? Because Death Jesters also wear overcoats.
Yes, they do. They're just they're one fedora away from going milady.
That's true. So yeah, the specialization of the Dark Reapers is heavy ranged firepower. But Malgan Ra's true defining thing is a tragedy. It's the loss of his home, Craftworld Altansar. Altansar survived the initial shockwave of the fall of the Eldar, but was slowly being dragged into the gravitational pull of the Eye of Terror. And within 500 years, it had been consumed by the warp. Malgan Ra was the sole survivor. Not a single Eldar managed to escape other than him. For 10,000 years, he searched for a way to rescue his people. That opportunity came during the 13th Black Crusade, when the Eye of Terror briefly opened enough for Malgan Ra to venture inside. Micah says the most secret and controversial path, that of the Redditor. The Chunabu. So they actually wrote an epic tale of Malgan Ra's journey to Altansar. It's called, I can't even pronounce this, so I'm not even going to try, but it's got a cool name. And in this allegorical verse, it says that Malgan Ra slew the 1,000-eyed beast, overthrew the plague golem, and survived the 11 riddles of the Gyre Sphinx, which sounds amazing, frankly. That sounds like one hell of a story. Then he found...
It sounds like a Redditor telling you their adventure.
I mean, it does, a little bit, yeah. He did find the survivors of Altansar, but they were changed. They were alive, but changed by their journey. Craftworld Aeldari, by the way. Alexis, I know something you're interested in.
Please let me get more information about Craftworld Aeldari, because they're half demon Eldar.
So Malgan Ra led the remnants of this Craftworld back into real space, but even after this triumph, the other Aeldari regard Altansar survivors with great suspicion, given the millennia that they've spent in the warp, though none would dare voice this concern in the presence of the Harvester of Souls, because he's just that scary. Or at least that's what he says.
They just don't want him talking to them.
I don't know. Malgan Ra is he does have a very edgelordy vibe. I'll say that.
Greetings, milady.
Oh, God.
I am the Harvester of Souls.
The darkest of all the Phoenix Lords.
I put a scythe on the end of my gun.
He totally did. Totally did.
Well, you know what? In all fairness, at least GW did this before Ruby.
Right.
We
Ruby,
have to give it to them.
That's true. Yeah, Ruby does have a scythe in it, and that's a cool show. I need to watch that again.
It is a good show.
There's one last Phoenix Lord to cover.
Oh yeah, the newest one. Well, technically not the newest one.
No, for real. It's the most recently revealed one in the timeline. Lycus, the Whispering Web.
It's Madam Web. It's a Spider-Man reference.
So she's the founding progenitor of the Warp Spiders Aspect Shrine. She has been absent so long that scholars have classified her as apocryphal. They thought she was a story. Even the Aeldari themselves had come to believe that she was lost. Her absence was eventually traced to her armor being lost and then recovered during the events of the Psychic Awakening, which is one of Alexis's favorite series of books. And we should really cover it as an episode one of these days.
The Psychic Awakening, the thing that irks me about it is that none of the stories have a conclusion.
Just one thing that irks you about it?
Well, that and,
I feel like there's a lot that irks you about it.
I will go into detail about it, but I do actually enjoy the series. I want that to be clear. It just has a few tiny, giant, glaring issues in the lore.
Just a few.
Yeah, mostly of how Ethereal Stern goes from one side of the galaxy to the other in less than like a day.
So Lycus is defined by a reckless, almost nihilistic courage. It perfectly mirrors her shrine's tactics because when warp spiders teleport, they have built-in teleporters in their armor. They are teleporting through the warp, which exposes them to Slaanesh. So the warp spiders are considered the daredevils, the fearless of the aspect warriors, and so Lycus is very much that as well. These short jumps that they make through the warp, which is again an act of extraordinary danger, allows them to ambush enemies before they vanish. Again, this is a version of hit and run, but unlike the swooping hawks, warp spiders are a lot more durable and they carry very devastating weapons. They carry things called web spinners, which are basically, imagine a flamer that shoots out a cloud of monofilament wire that dices anything that comes into contact with it into finely shaved chunks.
I think you mean death spitters, not web spitters.
Sorry, death spitters. Yes, death spitters. Apologies. Web spinners is what Spider-Man uses. Apologies. Yep. How can I possibly get these two things?
I don't know. Could it be that she also has a way of predicting said future and dodging things out of her path? Almost like some kind of sense of a spider.
So Lycus, even the most, sorry, let me rephrase this. Even the most ancient warp spiders exarchs, they hesitate before throwing themselves through the immaterium, but Lycus does not. She just does it. And she is described as embodying Khaine's willingness to risk everything for victory. Her armor is a marvel of Aeldari craft. It features 4 additional arms, which is pretty great. I think, no, it's a total of 4 arms, right? It's not 6 arms?
Hang on. No, she has a total of 8 limbs, so 2 legs, yeah. 6 arms.
So 6 arms, yeah. She has 4 additional arms. And 2 of them wield a unique pair of death spinners. The other 2 have weapons kind of like the Harlequin's Kiss, which is another weapon that's a monofilament. The Harlequin's Kiss is one you punch into your opponent, and it unspools the monofilament inside of them, which is horrific. And then she also carries a crackling sword called Vitarkin, known as the Weave Render, and it's said to be sharp enough to cut reality itself.
So another sword that banishes you to the Shadow Realm.
Or potentially destroy demons. Potentially. Since her return, Lycus has become another one of the very active Phoenix Lords, traveling across the galaxy to defend the Asuryani wherever they are needed. So, in one last time, the most active Phoenix Lords are Lycus, Asserman, and Jane Zar. Yeah, those are the top 3 most like, hey, we're here to help.
The least active is the Shadow Spectre.
Yeah, because he's apparently gone. And the Shining Spear, Drastada.
Yep.
Those 2. And then I guess Fuegan maybe would be the last one.
No, probably Mungden Ra.
Possibly, yeah. If you're not Althensar, he's probably not that interested.
Yeah, fair enough. Or the Crimson Hunter Exarch,
which Phoenix Lord, which we don't know. We don't know who that is, or even if they exist. So,
yeah,
we presume that it exists because in order to found a shrine of aspect warriors, typically a Phoenix Lord does that. And the Crimson Hunters are a aspect warrior shrine that we don't know anything about their Phoenix Lord. So, except if it's that one name I mentioned way back. But so the Phoenix Lords, they are very deeply tied. They're intimately connected to Caleb Mencha Khaine, the Aeldari god of war, the bloody-handed god is what they call him. In Aeldari theology, Khaine was shattered into thousands of fragments during the war in heaven, or or during the fall of the Eldar, depending on how you want to read their legends.
That is something that we do have to point out, that the Eldar gods, like the Eldar never walked amongst their gods. That is just a legend that they tell. We don't know if their gods were physical, extra dimensional, or like actual beings. The Eldar just have legends about their gods.
Well, let's put it this way. We know that avatars exist for both Iniad and Khaine, and they walk in the actual physical world.
Yes.
We know that the Phoenix Lords are immortal and represent aspects of Khaine, and they walk in the physical world.
Yes.
If any gods in 40K represent something in the physical world, it's possibly the Aeldari gods.
Or the Emperor.
Except they're all dead.
Yes.
Except for Isha, Segarak, and Khaine are the only surviving gods that we know of. And Iniad.
Yeah, Iniad. But I'm wondering if they need a tether to the real world.
Maybe.
Because, like, Iniad is just partially awake and needs a tether to become the avatar.
Yvraine. Yeah, Yvraine is his tether.
Well, no, Yvraine doesn't become the avatar of
No,
Iniad.
but she is the tether because she is the living embodiment. Not she's not an avatar, but she does carry the favor of Iniad and the Eldar around her, the Inari. When they die, their souls go to Iniad. They do not get consumed.
Yeah.
In her presence. So she is a tether. So we were talking about Khaine though.
Yes.
And each fragment of Khaine became an avatar of Khaine, which is a war incarnation summoned by the Craftworlds in time of desperate need.
Oh, I get to talk about my favorite story that pisses off Ross. When the Genestealer Patriarch became an avatar of Khaine.
God, that's so stupid.
It is. I fully agree with you.
So stupid.
For those of you that don't know, for those of you that don't know, in a book, I forget the name at this point. I apologize, but I have shown this to Ross. I've shown him the book. I've shown him the page. We both agree that this should not be canon. It is very, very dumb. But during the transformation of the being into the avatar of Khaine, a patriarch of the Genestealer cult, a broodlord essentially, ran into the chamber and ripped the person out and killed them and became an avatar of Khaine. And in doing so, lost the control of his Genestealer cult, and the Eldar immediately tried to kill it. In fact, both factions disregarded each other to murder it. So, that happened. And I can only imagine the cult afterwards was just like, hey, that was really confusing. I'm just going to leave.
The patriarch of Khaine is what they called it.
Yeah. I actually think that was Ghost Warrior. Yeah, I think Professor Sharp is correct. I think it was Ghost Warrior.
I don't know for sure.
I'd have to double check it. I apologize for not knowing the name off the top of my head. My apologies.
In our opinion, it is dumb and bad and wrong and just should be ignored.
If it is Ghost Warrior, there's a lot in that book that is very, very weird because that book also mentions Slaanesh all the way back in the War in Heaven. So yeah.
Yeah, the Patriarch of Khaine. That is that's woo. We should have an episode sometime where we talk about like the absolute most bizarre pieces of the lore.
I mean, I think I would put that above Inquisitor Sherlock Clouseau. Obi-Wan Sherlock Clouseau.
I don't think it is from Ghost Warrior, actually, but yeah, Obi-Wan Sherlock Clouseau is another one of those.
Yeah.
All right, so we were talking about Khaine. And the Phoenix Lords, they each embody a specific aspect of Khaine's nature. This is why they're called aspect warriors, the shrines, because they are aspects of Khaine. So Jane Zar and the Howling Banshees, they are the ferocity of Khaine. Fuegan is Khaine's capacity for obliteration. Cunning and deadly stealth is Karandris. The speed and strike from the skies is Behareth. The balanced martial wisdom is Asserman. Stuff like that. They are not
recklessness.
Yeah, that's a Lycus.
Lycus. Yeah.
The Phoenix
The
Lords
being forgotten to the background. I'm sorry.
The Phoenix Lords are not actually pieces of Khaine. They are Aeldari warriors who devoted themselves so completely to these aspects of Khaine that they came to embody it in a nearly divine manner. That's why I use the term warrior saint, right? And the aspect shrines that they founded replicate this theology. So if you follow an aspect shrine of the Striking Scorpions, you are taught about cunning and stealth, and you are taught to venerate Khaine in his aspect as the Scorpion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these are specific ways of war that the Phoenix Lords preferred. And this is also part of the path system, because the path of the warrior, which is what you do when you become an aspect warrior, is further subdivided into all of these different manners of warfare. So this channels the Aeldari's violent nature into a controlled outlet that lets them avoid being spiritually consumed by Khaine's murderous essence. It's important to point out that the gods and the Aeldari had a very, very strong connection. Pre-fall of the Eldar, when you died as an Eldar, you went to the afterlife. Your soul would then dwell with one of the gods, the god that you worshipped, and then you would be reborn. You would be reincarnated.
Almost instantaneously, too.
Well, it depended, but the cycle was broken by the fall of the Eldar, and they had to adjust, since they had to find new ways to exist in the afterlife.
I think that's also when they gained the ability to live longer.
True, but the reason I bring this up is because Slaanesh is technically an Eldar god, right? So is Khaine, and Khaine, he does consume his followers. The Exarchs and the Phoenix Lords are consumed by Khaine. They have become lost on their path. They can no longer do anything other than be or represent that part of Khaine.
I think when a Exarch becomes the avatar of Khaine, I think they are actually consumed, like soul and everything.
They are literally consumed by Khaine.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you awaken an avatar of Khaine in a Craftworld, they sacrifice one of the Exarchs to do it.
Do you think Khaine gets stronger because of that?
Who knows? It is unclear at the very least.
Or do you think the shards of the shards of gods are strong dependent on certain things? Like Catan are the closest thing that we can compare it to, where the bigger the shard is, the stronger it is. But if you gather more shards and put them together, the Catan gets stronger. So I'm wondering if they could do something similar with the Avatar of Khaine, where they go around collecting a few of those shards, duct tape them together, Shikon Jewel style, and just summon big giant Avatar of Khaine.
Did you just reference Inuyasha? I love it.
I can every time I talk about shattered souls.
Nice.
I mean, the Shikon Jewel is literally called the Soul Stone.
So just to it's a thing that the Eldar gods resonate very strongly with their followers, and Eldar in general can become very hyper focused. They feel things very strong, they feel emotions more strongly than humans. The example I've given in the past is, if you've ever been to a concert, like a really, really big concert, and you feel like the entire crowd is vibing to a single emotion or a single feeling, and you're all feeling it and you're sharing it, and it's just so much bigger than you. That's what Eldar feel all the time. And it's not just joy, it's sorrow, it's anger, all those things. And the paths that the Craftworld Eldar follow channel that into a very disciplined way, whereas the Drukhari are just like, woo, we're gonna go nuts and party like it's 1999 and torture people because
I mean, who doesn't like just a little casual torturing of people? Like, hobbies.
Now, anyway. What's interesting about the Drukhari is that they tell a different story about Ara and Karandris.
Oh?
Yes, according to the Drukhari incubi, Ara's methods were simply at odds with Asserman's philosophical framework. And Ara chose to pursue his own darker path rather than conform to Asserman. Asserman he was too strict, man. We're not going to conform.
I love the idea that the Drukhari are punks. I'm totally down for that. I love the punk aesthetic. I would actually really like to paint up some like almost cyberpunk Dark Eldar.
Well, if Drazhar is in fact Ara, okay, because the legendarily lethal Master of Blades, Drazhar, the Incubi's greatest warrior. If he is in fact Ara reborn under a new name and a new identity, that raises some disturbing ideas. Because Phoenix Lords, again, they are nearly divine. They are warrior saints. That would mean one of them has fully embraced the culture of the Drukhari, the most sadistic and Slaanesh adjacent of all the Aeldari. And if his armor, again, Drazhar's armor does seem to behave like a Phoenix Lord's upon his death, it's then assumed by another Incubi, who then becomes Drazhar. That lends very strong implicit confirmation. And like it was pointed out, there's an Ara totem with the new Incubi kit and things like this. So it does kind of raise a few disturbing points that show that the Phoenix Lords, who are the exemplars of the Craftworld way, the Asuryani way, that even they are not immune to corruption and falling to a more debased form of themselves.
That is honestly horrifying, because that means that none of them are safe from Slaanesh, no matter how strong they are.
Right? Like, and Phoenix Lords are hella strong.
Yeah, all of them can fall into that. Honestly, has any Phoenix Lord fought a Chapter Master?
Well, they certainly fought Chaos Lords.
Yeah, but that's Chaos Lord. I mean, like a Space Marine Chapter Master. I don't think like any of them have actually done too much battle with Space Marines.
I'm pretty sure they have.
Well, yeah, they fought Space Marines, but I mean, they've 1v1'd as Chapter Master. Like the two common ones I can think of is Commander Dante, who has never fought any of them, and Kulgur. Kulgur might have. I
don't know of any event where they fought the Chapter Master, but it's very likely that at some point they did. That's all I can say.
Yeah. And then the writers were like, "Oh, we got to keep these two alive." So they fight a bit, and then an explosion parts them, and they run away.
So the Phoenix Lords do not belong to any single craft world. They are wanderers of the galaxy using the webway. They are drawn instinctively to places of great need and danger.
Are you telling me there's some kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy? Maybe some kind of Space Ranger.
They usually appear alone. Sometimes they appear together, but it's almost always whenever the Aeldari face an existential threat. And it's almost always when the Asuryani, the Craftworld Eldar, experience some sort of threat. However, Games Workshop has never told us much about the Exodites, so maybe they show up to help the Exodites. They probably show up to help the Harlequins. I don't know if that's ever...
If not, the Harlequins show up to help them.
Yeah, or vice versa. They don't seem active on Cormorant.
Ross, you're forgetting the other Eldar that no one remembers. The White Council.
Oh, God.
You know, the one time that they're mentioned in one book. In fact, it's a comic book.
Yeah, let's not go there. So the fact that the Phoenix Lords are not found in any particular place gives them that mythological, almost ghostly quality. And a Craftworld might go centuries without seeing a Phoenix Lord, and then have several appear in their darkest hour.
So is it a good thing to see one or bad? Because it only sounds like it's bad. Like, could you imagine you're just on a planet and you're like, all right, stuff's getting invaded. This is pretty bad. And then you see one of them walk by, you're just like, oh, great, we're screwed.
Well, anytime Phoenix Lords gather in numbers, Aeldari get concerned because of the Asuryata, that prophecy about the Rhana Dandra. In fact, during the Psychic Awakening,
Go away. I have a restraining order.
In the Psychic Awakening, 4 Phoenix Lords appeared at once to fight the Thousand Sons in the Webway. That was Behareth, Fuegan, Asserman, and Jane Zar. And that alarmed the Aeldari. They were like, oh shit, it's on. It's about to be the end times.
Now, I'm wondering if that is the same battle that is also in the Psychic Awakening with Yvraine, where she resurrects 2,000 sons and like completely resurrects them and then kills them in front of what's his name? Starts with an A. Why can't I remember his name? One of the strongest psychers of the 1,000 Sons.
Armin.
Armin, thank you. Yeah, for some reason my brain was just fusing both names and I couldn't read it. Thanks, brain. But she does that in front of him, and it's just like, yeah, I could cure all of your stuff. All right, later.
We got a super chat from Ricky Chapman. We remember in Jane Zar's book, she talks to an avatar of Khaine who calls her his daughter and wants her to be consumed more in the violence. That makes perfect sense, actually.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up.
I wonder, does Khaine refer to all of the Aeldari as his children?
Well, probably not Aeldari. I imagine that was because of the Phoenix Lords being so tied in with the aspect shrines, which are all tied into worship of him. So
yeah,
if you think about it, all the Phoenix Lords and all the aspect warriors are part of the cult of Caleb and Chicane. So
do you think other gods could have gotten Phoenix Lords?
I mean, it's often thought that Segurok maybe has a court of great harlequins who are all his Phoenix Lords, but we don't know. That's a speculative theory.
So let's explore that theory real quick, because we are talking about Phoenix Lords and everything.
If Rain comes very close to being a Phoenix Lord of Inari, but she's not. She's never died. So
yeah. She did die.
Well, she's never died and left behind a spirit stone that could be put into a suit of armor.
Yeah.
There's a very specific thing to be a Phoenix Lord.
Yeah, because she died at the exact moment that Armin did the spell to awake Iniad, which was almost failed. So we had to access it really quickly. And then she died at that exact moment to Lilith Hexprex, and then was resurrected, which then caused part of her stadium to explode, which let demons into the Jakari's home.
So if you look at it that way, Inari or Yvraine is a very similar being. She has died and been reborn.
Yeah.
And reborn under the auspices of an Eldar god, which is Iniad instead of Khaine. So possibly she is the closest example, unless you want to talk about Eldred Elthron also being potentially a Phoenix Lord.
I am in the spot of thinking that he is the Phoenix Lord of Seers.
Well, there is a path of the Farseer, so he's certainly an exarch of the path of the Farseer. I would agree.
And he is very much included in the end times of the Eldar. Like, he is trying his best to avoid it.
Speaking of that, shall we talk about the Rhana Dandra in more detail?
Yes, go right ahead.
This is one of my favorite bits of lore for 40K, so I'm really excited to talk about it. The Rhana Dandra, the Aeldari end times. It is literally, in the Aeldari language, it means the end of all days. It is a prophecy that says there's going to be a final catastrophic battle between the whole of the Aeldari species and the forces of chaos. And this is foreseen to end in the destruction of both sides.
Okay.
It is simultaneously a religious doctrine, a military inevitability, and the defining psychological shadow hanging over every Craftworld Eldar alive in the 41st millennium. I don't know if this is something that the Ixodites care about. I'm sure that the Harlequins are familiar with it because they probably put on plays about it.
Oh, yeah.
And I imagine the Jakari just don't care. Jakari are both ignorant and apathetic. They don't know and they don't care, I am imagining.
They probably also think that just because they're in the webway, they're fine.
I imagine that is something that they tell themselves a lot, yes.
Oh, yeah.
But where other civilizations might dread oblivion as an uncertainty, the Aeldari have it written in their sacred texts, and they're forced to ask themselves not if it will happen, but whether it has to end the way that the prophecy says it does.
Okay.
It's not simply a myth. It is an active theological organization, a sacred prophetic book, and there are named champions who are foretold to die in specific ways. At least 2 rival factions offering competing interpretations of how or whether it can be altered. And understanding it requires understanding what drives the Aeldari entire post-fall civilization, which is the eternal, inexorable hunger of a god they created, and the desperate hope that their dead might save them. It is tied into the rise of the Ynnari.
All right.
So, the Rhana Dandra is recorded in the Asuryana, which we've talked about before. This is the sacred text. This is the Bible, if you will, of the Craftworld Aeldari, the Asuryani. And the Asuryana serves as both a theological document and a prophetic chronicle. It describes the history of the Phoenix Lords, the precepts of the path of the warrior, and the conditions and events that will constitute the Rhana Dandra itself. Its central prophecies state that the final battle will destroy the Aeldari and their remaining gods, which is interesting. And in another passage, it says that it will obliterate both the real world and the warp together. Is sort of a cosmological annihilation. Now, it is suggestive that it would destroy these. I want to be clear. It's a little hyperbole for me because it's just such a cool thing. The exact wording and severity of the destruction is left ambiguous in the Rhana Dandra, but the idea of it is still present in the descriptions. It is not hard coded in fact that it's going to destroy the warp and and the material world at the same time. So just to be clear, this is a little bit of interpretation on my part, but so the Rhana Dandra says this, and this the Book of the Rhana Dandra is also known as the Book of Fate. Now, this is a different document than the Asuryana. The Asuryana is the prophecy. The Book of Fate, though, is a physically distinct relic. It's a massive tome housed in the Black Library. Now, Alexis, what is the Black Library?
So, the Black Library is a sometimes Craftworld. I do have to specify sometimes because sometimes it's not. It's a physical place on a planet. But it is where Kigarath stays. It is a massive library containing all information of everything in the history of forever. Mostly it contains like things like anti-warp stuff and like Well, it contains the White Council, if you count them.
I don't.
I'm going to keep bringing them up because they appear in an Ethereal Stern book. And that's why, because Ethereal Stern is 100% canon and her story is canon. Certain parts of her story are not, like her being a psyker.
Right.
But anyway, within this domain, Ethereal Stern has gone in and read a few books, and it's why she can now control her abilities. Or maybe it's not. We don't know. But she said she went in and got out and was now in control. But anyway, this library contains an actual god, which I would love to go in and talk to. I would love GW to actually talk about, which could be really cool, because then we can find out if the god is physical. But if it's within a physical location, is that physical location actually there, or is it in another dimension? We don't know. Yeah, it's just a big old library. It's like an endless library too. It's really cool, and it has the Harlequins protecting it.
It does, and
it also has an infinite staircase leading to it. That Yvraine comments to Armin, like, you haven't even found the infinity staircase yet, and Armin's like, "What's that?" And she's just like, "You'll never get into the Black Library," and leaves.
So this the Book of Fate is it's described as extraordinary even by Aeldari standards. Its binding is encrusted with sapphires and emeralds and topaz and tourmaline. It glows with an inner light. There are diamonds on its surface that are believed to be spirit stones of long dead Aeldari farseers. But crucially, and this is the most important part, the Book of Fate is said that its pages, which are covered in illuminated rune script, but it's said that its pages will change as the probabilities of time and the future shift, writhing with living runes. So it is a book that is constantly changing as the future changes. It is not just a prophecy, but a living record of all possible futures, narrowing towards a single point, which is the Rhana Dandra. Now, how do we know about this Book of Fate, right? What's the whole deal with the Book of Fate? If you're familiar with the Ian Watson novels, these are the very earliest 40K books, the fiction books, and they are considered to be wildly inaccurate and very much out of step with what 40K is. So here's your giant grade of salt.
Now we will
because
say
everything about this book is from those books.
Ian Watson, I think he passed away recently, right?
Just very recently, yeah. Unfortunately, rest in peace, Ian Watson.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is all comes from those books, but that's where we get that information, and I thought it was important to bring up. Now, what does the Asuriata say about the Rhana Dandra? Well,
it is inevitable.
It does say it's inevitable. The clearest precondition for the Rhana Dandra is the assembly of all the Phoenix Lords in one place. The Asuriata states that when the Phoenix Lords are gathered, the Rhana Dandra will begin. So if you have a coalition of these immortal champions of every aspect shrine standing shoulder to shoulder at the end of all days, that's when that begins. It's not just a military arrangement. This is a theological threshold. The gathering of the Phoenix Lords is the signal that the age of the Aeldari is at an end. This is it. And it's very obviously this is based on biblical Armageddon. Right? It's very similar to that. And we know
do have a super chat.
Oh, we sure do. Nestor Vitambra, thank you, sir. Maybe destruction means the fusion of a purified warp, the old Sea of Souls, and real space, ending the ban of Assyrian and restarting the universe in a state of balance. Interestingly enough, the Book of Fate is said to be able to rewrite time itself.
And we also know that there are several characters that could rewrite time.
Right. There was that, and we did an episode on The Rock very recently, and there was a very bizarre living warp engine called the Chicholka that is also said to be able to reboot the universe and restart time. So there's a lot of different ways this could happen. But thank you for pointing that out, Nestor Vitambra. You have a very interesting viewpoint on all this stuff. I really like that.
I do want to point out that this sounds a lot like Ragnarok.
Oh, yeah. It's Ragnarok and Armageddon. It's those two things.
Well, Ragnarok isn't just the end of all things. It's actually just a cycle of death and rebirth. It's the ending of a season and the start of a new.
Well, if you have a group called the Phoenix Lords, it makes sense that they would end something and then something would be reborn.
Yeah, exactly.
From the ashes.
So I could see like all of their gods being destroyed and then being reborn because they were destroyed. Like, that's why they need to destroy Slaanesh, because if we go with Warhammer Fantasy, for instance, Slaanesh consumed gods in Warhammer Fantasy, I believe. She consumed a lot. And they were able to extract certain things from her. Granted, a lot of them were corrupted and things like that. You got fish elves and blood elves, which were pretty neat. Not the fish elves. The fish elves are weird. It kind of reminded me of like old Pokemon games where the goldfish would just like float above the ground, and it's like,
I think Biofoot is out there like, hey, hey.
But what I think is that the death of all would kill Slaanesh. Slaanesh would always exist because Chaos Gods always exist. Maybe. And the Sea of Souls would be calmer and the Chaos Gods would be reborn. But I also then think that, things like the Emperor would then be reborn. Things like
Starchild.
And the universe would just restart, but still be the same setting that we know and love.
I mean, if you need to reboot 40K, you have a few keys to turn, and one of these is the Rhana Dandra.
Yep. And the Rhana Dandra also lines into, well, Aeldari prophecy lines into a very particular Primarch that me and you really like, Leman Russ.
It has some things in common with the Wolf Time.
Which he went into the warp to find a way to cure the Emperor,
Yeah,
which
maybe,
is Isha.
Maybe, possibly.
Maybe. Which means that he might go and kill a god to resurrect the god in reality. Because she is trapped, which means that there is a chance that Slaanesh has trapped the other gods within her. And the souls of billions, well, trillions of Eldar.
So what we know about the Rhana Dandra, go ahead.
I will just say I am reaching here. Okay? I just want to point that out. But I really like Aeldari prophecies, and the logical conclusion is it's a magic reset button for the setting to like be like, haha, we got rid of all the bad lore. We rewrote it. Now it's better.
If there ever was to be a reboot of 40K, I think the Rhana Dandra would have to be a part of it. So
I would love the Emperor to fail. I think that would be the starting point. I want the Emperor to step within Nurgle's domain, kill Nurgle, because Nurgle is afraid of the Emperor. I want then for the other three gods to unify and actually beat him, weakening themselves in the process, and the Eldar just go, holy go, 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 and just all unify to destroy the Chaos Gods. And that's what the Rhana Dandra is.
Let's go. Maybe. We know a few things about the Rhana Dandra. We know that when the Phoenix Lords are gathered, it will begin. We know that Fuegan is specifically identified as the one who will call the other Phoenix Lords together for that battle, and he will be the last Phoenix Lord to die in the battle. And we know that Behareth is destined to die as well. But the precondition of needing all the Phoenix Lords to gather is why the absence of Drastanta, for example, is seen as a complication by many of the Farseers. They're like, it's not quite ready because Drastanta hasn't been found. But as long as Drastanta's armor remains undiscovered and he can't be reborn, that means according to the Farseers, they believe that this means the full assembly of the Phoenix Lords cannot occur. So they think this is kind of a source of hope. They're like, I hope nobody finds Drastanta's armor. Because if they do, then that's the Rhana Dandra. I don't know. The Rhana Dandra is also linked to the broader theological framework of Iniad, which is the Eldar god of the dead, and the growing depletion of the Aeldari race. Every Aeldari death that is successfully captured by a Spirit Stone and deposited into a Craftworlds Infinity Circuit feeds Iniad with some psychic power. Like Iniad lives in the Infinity Circuits. He lives in the souls of the dead Aeldari. The prophecy, the Asriata, implies that the Rhana Dandra cannot be averted unless the Aeldari find some way to break this fundamental cycle of their post-fall existence, the endless war of attrition against Slaanesh, in which each generation is smaller than the last. And of course, no account of the Rhana Dandra can be separated from Slaanesh herself. In Aeldari, she's called Silanthresh, which means she who thirsts. And it's her birth as a chaos god that caused the fall of the Aeldari. It's her awakening and that killed billions in an instant and created the Eye of Terror. Slaanesh feeds specifically and ravenously on Aeldari souls, which burn bright in the warp, brighter than virtually any other species, which is a product of the Eldari's intensely psychic nature.
Sorry, I got the Has Been Hotel song of Brighter stuck in my head. It's a good song.
So there's basically this existential trap that defines the Aeldari civilization post-fall. Every Aeldari who dies without a Spirit Stone, basically their soul gets consumed by Slaanesh and is tortured for eternity. The Drukhari avoid this by feeding the suffering of others to Slaanesh as a distraction. The Craftworld Aeldari captures souls and Spirit Stones and put them into Infinity Circuits. But this is an increasingly difficult. These are increasingly difficult holding actions, basically. The Harlequins are protected by Segarak, although his protection has limits. And the Exodites use planetary versions of Infinity Circuits called World Spirits to protect their dead. All of these strategies, though, delay the Rhana Dandra rather than prevent it. Slaanesh remains an ever-present, growing power while the Aeldari dwindle. In the final battle, in the Asuriada's original vision, it ends only when there are no Aeldari souls left to fight for. And that's kind of, at least, again, this is an interpretation of the text. And in that ending is where you destroy those two worlds.
Now, I want to point out something that's like, this is dark and bleak, but the Eldar use this as a justification to genocide entire human worlds to save very few Eldari. They commit acts of horrendous murder if it extends their life just a little longer.
So, Idiot, the Aeldari god of the dead, he's a warp presence that has yet to be fully realized. And he's assembled from the souls of millennia of Aeldari dead. The traditional Aeldari prophecy around Iniad, not Rhana Dandra, Iniad, it's very simple. When the very last Aeldari dies, Iniad will finally have enough power to awaken fully. And then he will destroy Slaanesh. The Aeldari will be extinct, but their god of death will avenge them and perhaps allow their souls to be reborn into new forms. So this interpretation frames the Rhana Dandra as a noble but total sacrifice of their species, dying to kill their own killer. Now, there's this guy called Casadris the Anchorite. Do you know who he is?
I do not, unfortunately.
He's that guy who hangs out with Ivrain.
The
Vizark.
Yeah, the Vizark. I know him as the Vizark. I don't know his actual name.
Or, I'm sorry, no, I'm wrong. Is Casadris? Casadris is he the guy that hangs out with Ephriel Stern? Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, isn't that Ephriel Stern's boy toy?
Yeah, I think it is.
Now I'm getting both names mixed up. So
yeah, there's the Vizark, which is different. I'm sorry. My apologies. Yeah, that's sorry. This is the guy. This is the guy who hangs out with Ephriel Stern. I apologize. Yeah. Anyway,
the outsider.
He said specifically that he proclaimed to the high seers of all the Craftworlds that the end times had begun, and their only hope lay with Iniad. So there's literally a guy who has come out and said to the Eldar, it's on, it has started.
Yeah, I mean, the Eldar being late to the party, not really a surprise.
This proclamation was controversial, but it was not universally rejected. In fact, Eldred Ulthran was like, okay, cool, we're going to make Iniad happen faster.
We do have a super chat from Rick Chapman.
Yay, Ricky Chapman. Alexis is kind of right. At least in Age of Sigmar, we know what's in Slaanesh's stomach. Marathi escaped and has told people souls are trapped, destroying things don't suffer as much as imprisoned things. So the point is that the trapped souls of the Aeldari are in torture, but if they were destroyed, they would no longer be tortured and they could be reborn. I think that's what he's saying. We're talking some deep metaphysical crap this episode.
Now, we also have to remember that the Chaos Gods, while they exist in both realms, are inherently sometimes different depending on what GW decides that day. But for the most part, they are different universes, just with a lot of similarities. And a lot of things that happen in AOS and in Old World are things that will eventually happen in 40K. Like when when AOS explodes and becomes the one world, that's still a rumor, by the way. We might see something happen to 40K in the next 5 years where another significant planet is destroyed or retaken, and thus starting a different story arc. So I could see something like when we had the end times for Old World to AOS, we had the fall of Cadia for 40K, which was the end times of 40K to get rid of all of the old stuff and replace it with Primaris and new names so that GW could copyright all of it, because they lost all of their copyrights because they're really bad at naming things.
So I want to again, it's really important to point out, we're talking about prophecies and we're talking about lore that is often sidelined, backgrounded. So the things that we're talking about here, keep in mind, giant grain of salt. These are in some ways speculative because a lot of this lore is very intentionally vague. Okay, and it's current lore on Iniad specifically is actually quite ambiguous because
there's like 2 books and like a paragraph.
Well, so Iniad can destroy Slaanesh and possibly create conditions for a new era of Aeldari life, but it is not. We don't know if Aeldari will be reborn and into the same bodies or the same society. So we don't really know. It's a possibility of a new age for the Aeldari species. Although exact form of what that would take, we don't know. It's just that it's some form of rebirth is what Iniad kind of offers. So there's that. There's the prophecy of the Rhana Dandra, and the Book of Fate comes from like this very weird place. It is a piece of lore that is split across a lot of different sources, and I love the idea of it. I do. It's fantastic. It's just very strange.
Now, Ross, who do we know that is a master of prophecies and hold on, and has broken a few of them in his favor?
Okay, who?
Who happens to be big and green? The prophet of the Wa.
Oh, you're talking about Ghazghkull Maguruk Thraka.
Ghazghkull, and this is connected to the Phoenix Lords and everything. Ghazghkull is, weirdly enough, a master of prophecies. He understands them at a fundamental level and applies rules as written to them and breaks them. Like when the saga of the Head Taker was issued to Ghazghkull, it was a great prophecy of the wolf to take Ghazghull's head. And Ghazghull's like, oh, okay, that's all I have to do to break your prophecy? Yeah, go ahead, kill me. Gets his head cut off, reattached, comes back, and beats his ass, just going, ha, I beat your prophecy. And that's actually one of the prophecies, not the prophecy of the Wa. That's the, is that the Psychic Awakening? I think that might be the Psychic Awakening book of the Space Wolves. It's just Ghazghkull just realizing, hey, I know how your prophecy works and I know how to beat it. So Eldar often use orcs quite a bit, but orcs and Eldar were created simultaneously. Now, granted, they were the Quarks at the time, but orcs do have a fundamental understanding of the entirety of the galaxy if there is enough orcs around for them to properly understand it. I know that sounds weird, but the more orcs, the smarter they get. If Ghazghkull builds a Wa big enough, he could probably break the Rhana Dandra.
Quite possibly. And the other thing I want to point out is that you need all the Phoenix Lords to get together. And according to lore, the only one that's currently missing and unknown is Drastanta. So if they can bring back there is that other guy, Irilith, but he's so backgrounded that I'm not sure it matters. But if they find,
he counts as canon anymore, to be honest.
So the alarm bell is going to be Drastanta being recovered. If Drastanta reappears, the Rhana Dandra is near.
Yes.
That's the tripwire, if you will.
Could you imagine if they gather all the Phoenix Lords and everything, and then Ghazghkull just goes, oh, and kills 2 of them? Hey, look, they're gone. And then takes their armor.
I mean, maybe it's. Woo! So the Rhana Dandra is it's got a lot of weight to it. It's got a lot of impact. It's got a lot of stakes for both the Aeldari and for everyone if it destroys both the Immaterium and the material world. But like Alexis says, there's a lot of ways to push that lever. There's a lot of ways to alter the outcome of the Rhana Dandra. Even the lore about the final battle, it's considered unfinished. Like they're not really sure what's going to happen at the end. They have said that certain things will occur, like Behareth dying, like Fuegan being the last one to fall. But yeah, beyond that, it's unclear. So who knows? I mean, also there's legend of Segurok and his final trick, which is more Harlequin lore than Phoenix Lord lore, but It is
But
related.
it does involve the Phoenix Lords, just like how I'm relating Gosgul to it is
Mhm.
because you could break the cycle, break the prophecy. And there is also, the giant emperor in the room who could also break the prophecy.
Yeah, that's another one too. Segorok, who is Segorok? Segorok is the laughing god. He's the trickster deity who's the patron of the Harlequins. And as far as we know, he's the only Aeldari god who survived the fall of the Eldar in his original form.
Yep.
Khaine and Isha also survived, but in different ways. They were altered by it.
Isha was taken, so she's potentially still in her full form, though at this point, probably not. And yeah, Avatar of Khaine is an avatar now. He's exploded.
He was sharded, as you like to say. So the texts of the Black Library say that Segorok has a final act, a last moment twist that the Laughing God has kept secret even from his own Harlequins. A final act describing Segorok's ultimate jest, a way to trick Slaanesh into expending all of her power, not to destroy the Aeldari, but to save them instead.
So, now, I believe that this has something to do with the Necrons.
Maybe.
Because Necrons they have a way to seal up the warp. Potentially having a way of putting beacons in the warp to keep the Eldar safe. And that would just be hilarious, just looking at Eldar and just be like, no, don't touch me there. This is my no square. And just be like, totally safe.
So if Segorok was able to invert everything Slaanesh represents, tricking her into giving rather than taking, that would be pretty wild. The Harlequins, though, they've taken this idea pretty seriously, because the Harlequins kind of operate on the belief that they are the performers in Segorok's greatest and final performance.
Mm-hmm.
That the play without end, which is what they call their existence, has been building towards the final act ever since the fall of the Eldar. So every Harlequin troop, every dance battle, every intervention in the great crises of the 41st millennium, they see that as lines in the script of the play, leading towards Segorok and Slaanesh doing their final dance in a fateful encounter when the Dark Prince sweeps its arms over the audience with ominous music, and then at a critical moment, the dancer representing the dying Aeldari collapses, broken, but crawling away into the shadows rather than being consumed. The dance does not end as it always has before, and in this way, the new act can begin.
Also, have you noticed how many times plays come up in Warhammer 40K's lore?
I mean, more than you'd think.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is the lore on the Phoenix Lords as we know it. I do have some cool fan theories we could talk about.
Oh, heck yeah. Because we don't have too many models to look at this week, unfortunately.
Oh, no,
we only have one. So we will save those until we get a whole bunch. So if you guys want to join the Lorebeards Discord, there'll be a link in the chat because our moderators are amazing and know exactly when to do that. And if you post miniatures in the miniature posting channel, we get to take a look at them live on stream and talk about them. And some of you guys are absolutely crazy when it comes to like painting. Absolutely incredible. And we got a super chat from Ricky Chapman.
Yeah, before I get into that, though, I should say if you have enjoyed this deep dive into the grim darkness of the far future, do us a favor and click that link and subscribe, like and subscribe buttons so that we can spread our heresy to other unknowing minds, and the Lorebeards 40,000 channel can grow with the algorithm. We appreciate you. Ricky Chapman, go ahead.
There is one god worse than all others in Warhammer 40K, and that is the YouTube algorithm gods.
The algorithm, yeah. So Ricky Chapman coming in with a steel chair. Look at this. He says, by the way, in our campaign, we found out why Jane Tsar and the other Phoenix Lords are hunting us. During surgery, our Inquisitor was found to have a Wraithbone beacon in his head, woven through his brain and transmitting somewhere. Wow! Holy shit, dude.
That's some serious plot.
I mean, I want to be in your game someday because this sounds amazing. It legitimately does.
Sounds that's the start of another like amazing RPG session.
So you remember when we were talking about the Phoenix Lords and we said they had a name, but they also have a title, like Fuegan is the Burning Lance and Jane Zar is the Storm of Silence. So because the Aeldari called them Phoenix Lords, and because they did originally have other names, at least as far as if we believe that that story about Iliathan becoming Asserman, right? And we believe that Jane Zar was her original name. The fan theory is that it is intentional that the Aeldari want the Phoenix Lords to not have those individual names, but rather be known by their epithet, right? The Storm of Silence instead of Jane Zar, because the epithet creates a myth rather than a person.
Okay.
Right? And that it represents the Phoenix Lords losing some of their individual identity and being subsumed more into the role of this mythological figure, which it's a little bit horror, because you're the most famous Aeldari ever, but your culture is erasing your individual identity a little by little.
There is this comment that I think you will really like.
Nestor Vitumbra says Segorok's plan is that the Eldar willingly ascend, the Necrons possess their empty bodies. Wow. Slaanesh eats the reborn Necrontyr and dies of the horrible taste. Segorok honks the horn and everyone laughs. That is hilarious.
So
that's not also it's not completely out of left field either. That's plausible.
Okay, hold on. I actually really like this. There's a lot here that can happen. We know that the Necrons are trying to do soul transfusion to get their souls back and get bodies, and they're most likely going to use the human empire to do it. But if the Eldar were to ascend safely using the Blackstone Pylon network to make sure that their souls can't be taken at the time of them transferring it to a different, body, reality, or whatever, and then them transferring their consciousness into it and taking a remnant of their soul, thanks to the soul stones, there is a non-zero chance that Slaanesh would be none the wiser. And thus, the Eldar would still be preyed upon by Slaanesh without realizing that it's Necrons, and Kigarath would have protected all of his children and just laughed at Slaanesh. Hold on, I love this.
It's a pretty interesting idea. And the Necrons here do want to return to some form of a body. And it would be incredibly ironic to come back as Eldar.
Well, it's too happy of an ending, though, for 40K. Because that is a good ending for the Necrons. Although, what would be even funnier is if Slaanesh tried to absorb the soul and got the flare virus.
That would be even worse. Yeah, I agree.
That'd be diabolical.
So one of the interesting fan theories is that the Phoenix Lords are slowly becoming one through the Infinity Circuits. It's a very metaphysical theory, but it says, okay, so the Phoenix Lords are not only immortal, but they're also converging into a single Gestalt entity via the Infinity Circuits and the psychic structure of the Aeldari race. Every time an Exarch becomes a Phoenix Lord, their soul is added to the Phoenix Lord's oversoul, if you will, layering more memories and experiences and personalities into the same dominant consciousness. Over millennia, this could create sort of a meta Phoenix Lord, a single consonant scale psychic entity whose multiple bodies just are different faces of the same thing. Which means that if that's true, then the rebirth cycle of the Phoenix Lords is really a kind of proto-Ennead, where the Infinity Circuits are the skeleton and the Phoenix Lords are kind of the face of that skeleton. Or it's a very strange way. You could also look at it this way: if the Rhana Dandra happened and all the Phoenix Lords are destroyed, then they could be reborn as one singular being, a god called the Phoenix, for example.
I could definitely see that. Would the birth of a new god cause another psychic scream?
Probably
One,
not, because Iniod is the Eldar don't seem to fear the birth of Iniod, and they don't seem to.
no. But do you
So
think it'll affect Slanesh in some way?
I'm sure Slanesh is keeping an eye on all of these things. Let's put it that way, aware of it. Let's say.
Yeah.
Although it's for a certain value of awareness, because the Chaos Gods in 40k are not necessarily sentient beings.
Yeah, they're whatever the hell they are.
They're cosmic forces. They're
Yeah.
massive storms that you only hope to appease or avoid.
Also, they are not forces of nature.
No,
I know a lot of people love saying that they are not. And Khorne is not the god of honor.
another fan theory is that the Phoenix Lords are not just warriors inspired by Khaine, that they may actually be shards of the broken war god, because they're reforged into essentially immortal versions of the Avatar of Khaine.
So what you're saying is they're star children of the Avatar of Khaine.
That's not a bad way to think of it.
So similar to Celestine for the Emperor.
Well, if you look at it this way, the Phoenix Lords, their immortality is not just a trick, it's a theological necessity. Khaine's will refuses to let his own incarnations die. And so the Aeldari soul mechanic becomes a vessel for his persistence through the Phoenix Lords.
All right, I really like that one.
So possibly if all the Phoenix Lords were to get together and die, they would not necessarily rebirth as the Phoenix. They might rebirth as Khaine. They might be the way to bring Khaine back together.
Actually, yeah, because then Khaine could kill Slanesh finally.
So you asked about whether the sacrifice of an Exarch fuels or strengthens the Shard of Khaine. If a Phoenix Lord is a Shard of Khaine, then they are extremely strong because they've been fed Exarch after Exarch after Exarch.
Over 10,000
over
years.
10,000 years. It's kind of an interesting
minimum
idea.
10,000 years, we have to say.
Right, minimum.
Holy cow, that is going to be one super powered Avatar of Khaine.
I like that one too. I actually really like that fan theory. I think that's really cool.
I saw a comment earlier stating that why doesn't Khorne kill Khaine? And the answer to it is, well, because why would Khorne want to kill a worthy adversary?
Like, so again, this goes back to the nature of gods. This goes back to the nature of gods in 40k. Like everything I've been told about the Chaos Gods suggests that they don't have that kind of drive. Like they don't just feel those kinds of ambitions. But what we know about the Eldar gods suggests that they do. That the Eldar gods are actually far more human, if you will, in their outlooks and desires and needs. I don't know. And if the Emperor is a god, which we have reluctantly concluded that he probably is on this channel.
Even the Eldar think he's some Eldar think he's a god.
So if the Emperor is an actual god, then he, of course, has ambitions that are more relatable to humans and more thoughts that are relatable to humans because he was very closely tied with humanity.
Yeah.
So who knows, right? Like it's all very up in the air. We got two big ass super chats coming in. Ice Veins. Can the Aeldari physically mutate from chaos corruption? No.
There is, according to Games Workshop, there is a no. But, okay, we do have corrupted Eldar miniatures, but they're not Eldar. They're conveniently not Eldar, but they're very close, and they're the Jakari thing. What are they called?
The ghost people. Oh, no. The Mandrakes.
Mandrakes, which in older lore were Eldar and had the demon keyword. They're also tainted by the warp. And then there's Croneworlders, which Games Workshop refuses to give me my demon Eldar because I want to see what they look like, but they are corrupted Eldar. Now, we don't know if they are corrupted by chaos or corrupted by their own ambitions and things like that, and they're just like, monster Eldar. That's unknown. And in the RPG books for Wolfrup, there is a 5% chance that a chaos corruption can happen, a physical mutation can happen to an elf. But that's different than 40K, and I want to make sure that that is very clear.
So the answer is no, but yes. First of all, it's no, but it's also yes. So the question is, can Aeldari physically mutate from chaos corruption, or is it more mental than physical? It is more mental than physical. First of all, yes. I can say that. Icebane says, I know in Warhammer Fantasy, elves can't physically mutate. They can only gain a form of mental corruption. That is true, but it is also not true. And I'm gonna get into that. So yes, our answer for this question is no, they cannot physically mutate, but yes, they actually kind of can in very, very rare circumstances in very, very old lore. Here's a great example of Warhammer Fantasy elves mutating. There is a character called T'Challa the Denied One, who was an elf who physically mutated thanks to chaos. And she's now in Total War Warhammer 3. You can go see her right now if you want. And she is from that very, very old lore that says that elves can physically mutate. So no, but also yes.
So some of her lore, what they did is they actually took away any reference to her being an elf. And then they were just like,
he's kind of an elf, guys.
He's kind of an elf. It's kind of like how Be'lakor is kind of an elf, but not really.
Yeah, it's the overall answer is no, still no, but yes, possibly.
The answer stated by Games Workshop is no. The answer stated by Games Workshop is also possibly yes. Here's examples, but also no.
Right. So on the 40K side, it's the Mandrakes, and on the fantasy side, it's T'Challa, and both of those are older lore. So we'll see.
Mandrakes are still current lore.
The lore making them demons, though, that's older lore.
Yeah, strictly demonic.
That's what I'm saying.
But they do have physical mutations that are chaos related.
You know what? Mandrakes are going on the list for one of our upcoming episodes because we need to talk about these guys.
Yes, because they're really weird
and cool.
Yes,
they're actually one of my favorite bits of Drukhari stuff. Them and the witch cults. So which we already did.
I also need to see if they're still Eldar. That's another big thing. They might actually just be a separate alien race that works with the Drukhari now. I haven't checked that in a long time, so I fully admit that I can be wrong about this, but we do have another example that is maybe corrupted by chaos, and that's the Croneworlders, and we don't know enough about them. So it is 100% mental mutations for the most part, with a little bit of exception.
It wouldn't be a mutation. It'd be a mental. It would be an insanity, essentially.
Yeah, an insanity in 40K or a mental mutation in Warhammer Fantasy. They're roughly the same thing.
Got a super chat from Ricky Chapman. Big old super chat. Thank you, sir. We suspected Fabius Bile, but the signal led to a subdimensional labyrinth full of scary stuff. Dolmen gates, freebooters, demons, all trapped, and a group of warp spiders with their Phoenix Lord. Every faction has people trapped in there. Oh, sounds like Trazen's Infinite Labyrinth.
This campaign gets crazier and crazier.
I know. That's why I say I want to play in it. It sounds amazing. And he often shows off miniatures from his campaign as part of our when we do a miniature overview. So that's something to look forward to.
I need to check these guys now because now it's bugging me.
Some people say that Lycus is actually a Harlequin in disguise. Although I would argue that Malgan Ra maybe has the closest aesthetic to
yeah.
But people speculate that the Warp Spider Phoenix Lord might be created by Segarak or co-opted by Segarak to keep an eye on the Aeldari race as a whole, and that the official Phoenix Lord history of Lycus is actually a cover story for a secret Harlequin run intelligence network.
Okay, hold on. Run that by me. Are you telling me that they have an Inquisition?
I'm telling you that they have a spy network, and they think that Lycus might be a spy for the Harlequins.
It fits.
So under this theory, Lycus's willingness to warp jump into risky and dangerous situations is not just her combat style, but it's also covert ops. It's a way that the Aeldari are tested and observed by a being that looks like a Phoenix Lord, but thinks like a Death Jester.
Okay. I like it. I like it a lot. I like the idea that they're spy Eldar.
I mean, it could be. The Phoenix Lords in general could actually be just a cosmic prank by the Laughing God Segorok, designed to demonstrate how the Eldari's obsession with ego and identity turns people into myth machines.
Ooh.
Now that's some Destro Vitumbra, that's for you. That's some deep, crazy shit that I think you would probably
that is some crazy shit.
Because the Phoenix Rebirth mechanic strips away the host's identity and replaces it with the founder's soul, for lack of a better word. The headcanon is that Segorok engineered or nudged the system into existence just to watch the Aeldari slowly become willing participants in their own erasure, which I admit is a joke, but I don't think it's a particularly good one. This is what I don't think is accurate. This is a fan theory. I'm like, interesting idea, but I don't think so.
Yeah. Oh, also I read up on Mandrakes. Yeah, no, they're no longer chaos anymore.
Okay.
That makes me really sad, actually.
That's why we need to do an episode on them.
Yeah.
We'll put them into the rotation.
Yeah.
But the idea that the Phoenix Lords are just a joke by Segorok, that's some black comedy.
I mean, but it does make sense. That's right up Kakarot's plan.
I mean, he does have a cool sense of humor, but so the punchline, I guess, in this situation is you'd have all the Phoenix Lords finally get together for the Rhana Dandra, only to realize that Asserman is nowhere to be seen. It's just Segorok and a bunch of Harlequins all applauding. Good job. You fooled everybody.
I still want to know what Kakarot said to Ethereal Stern.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like that whole thing.
For sure. All right, well, we are in the final stages of our show for today. So what else do you have any final thoughts on the Phoenix Lords?
So, okay. I have to talk about it. They are Power Rangers.
But they existed before the Power Rangers were even a thing.
Did they though? Because the Power Rangers comes from the early 80s. It wasn't the American Power Rangers yet.
Tokusatsu does. Okay. If you're talking about the larger idea of Sentai and Tokusatsu, then yes, that existed before.
Yeah. And if you look at the Wraith constructs, they're very much Power Rangers.
All right. So if I go with your interpretation that the Aeldari are very coded Asian, okay.
Yeah.
Very, very coded from Japan and that area, then under that paradigm, they're obviously related to Super Sentai and Tokusatsu, and therefore are in fact Power Rangers. I guess I could see that.
Yeah. Now, granted, that is mostly a joke, but you can see the relation with them and like how elegant their robots are and how they just look like men in suits, which is really funny.
The original Wraith Lord was so goofy.
I loved it though. It's so fun. But one of the other things that I do want to talk about when it comes to the Phoenix Lords is when GW was expanding the Eldar range, they used the Space Marines as just the standard template for the Orcs and the Eldar. So that's why we have so many different bosses that have a lot of similarities to Space Marines. Then we have a bunch of Eldar chapter masters that are very similar to Space Marines. And they did this a lot, especially with the vehicles, weapons, and everything like that. Kovu, get off the stove.
Kovu is
I'm going to get him in a second. But we did see a big boom in their newer lore and everything, where they actually distance themselves. When I say newer lore, I'm talking 3rd edition. This is not newer lore. But from 3rd edition to 7th edition, they tried to move them a bit away from being Space Marines adjacent. Like they weren't Space Marines, but they were something almost called Space Marine equivalents. Because they had a 3+ armor save, they had a bunch of weapons that were very similar.
There's
And you
a
could,
there's an acronym for this in tournament gaming. It's called MEQ, right?
yeah. So they distanced themselves a little bit, but then the Eldar sat for like quite a few years until I think Gav Thorpe got his hands on them and made the Path books. And then the Path books were very successful. And then GW took a look at. I see Kofu.
Minor historical note here. Gav wrote the 3rd edition codex for the Eldar. So Gav,
Yeah.
before he wrote the Path novels, was already doing that. That he
Yes.
literally put that in place that led to the Path novels.
Yes. And then GW took another look at the Eldar and piecemealed their creation, their recreation. COVID hit, so all the production got shut down. So that kind of sucked. But then GW relaunched the Eldar and made them a bit more different than Space Marines, gave them more tragedy, which I like. I like that the Eldar are the race that inherited the galaxy only to let it slip through their hands. And the Phoenix Lords, while super powerful, are not strong enough to keep the Eldar together. They're inherently a flaw within their system, because if that power was given to all of the Eldar, they would be strong enough to maintain their society. But because they put all of that power in just a few hands that barely show up, they're seen as more of an omen than a hero. And I really like that when it comes to the the Phoenix Lords.
More of an omen than a hero. That's a really insightful comment, Alexis. I think that's a great way to characterize them.
Because you don't want to see them on a battlefield. Like,
well,
if you were
you kind of do. You kind of do. You're like, hey, it's Asperman. He's here to rescue us. That's great. But there's also there's a subtext that is maybe that's not so great, because this could be the Rhana Dandra.
Yeah. And I love the tie to Slaanesh, because Eldar, in a way, don't fit into 40K's storytelling. They're there. They have their own story that is self-contained, and it has pieces that branch out into other stories like the War in Heaven. But if you look at 40K as being the Imperials are the protagonist, because they are, the Eldar don't fit too well as an antagonist to the Imperium, but I think that that's perfect for them at this point. In older writings, the Eldar were just kind of there and they didn't really do much. But in newer writings, the Eldar are there as a warning of a civilization that has done everything the Imperium is doing and has fallen. And it's a really good warning to the Imperium. And the Imperium is got their head so far up their ass they can't see anything and are just going to run down the same path, even though multiple alien races are telling them not to do this. The Eldar and the Necrons, which are two of the most mortal enemies in 40K. And then you have the orcs who are just like, yeah, do it.
That's a really good, I like that. Some good insight. We have a super chat we need to read before we get too far.
Yeah.
Iceveins says, remember, everyone, the Emperor of Mankind, beloved by all, needs you to be alert for heresy. Those pesky Phoenix Lords.
In fact, I do view the Eldar as occasionally trying to do the right thing. But because they believe themselves so far advanced than humans, they just look down on them. They're speciesist. They look down on the humans to a point where they don't feel the need to explain things. Like when Sam Han assassinated a planetary governor because that governor was corrupted and actually going to hand the planet over to Abaddon, they came in and assassinated them, which started a war between the Ultramarines and Sam Han. And Sam Han actually killed a captain. I think it was captain of the 6th Company. And it was just a random captain, so we don't know what time span this happened, but whatever. But if they just communicated to the Imperium like, hey, we're doing this because this is happening, it would go too slowly. And the Imperium's bureaucracy would slow it down to the point where the Eldar would miss their chance. So they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. And that's where the Eldar sit. They are damned.
I think that's a really good way to break it down. And I love the way you phrased it as like it's a warning that they're not heeding. I think that's a really good way to look at it. That's fascinating. This has been a great episode. Rhana Dandra, Phoenix Lords are some of my favorite bits of lore, so I'm really excited we got to cover them. We are going to be streaming another show on Wednesday, which...
Oh, Ross, you also have a stream on your own channel. Would you like to plug that?
I absolutely would. If you want to catch me doing Twitch streams, I'm currently struggle busting my way through Baldur's Gate 3, and I will be starting playing some of the the Warhammer 40K Classic video games. You can catch me over on twitch.tv/TheRossWatson.
And if you want to check out my streams, I stream on YouTube and Twitch. It's under this name. I hope I'm pointing to it. I'll just do this. It's under this name, so I'm not wrong. I am streaming the classic game, currently Armageddon, and that game is brutally difficult, and I am terrible at video games. So if you want to see me fail at video games and gush over old models, come check it out. It's Northern Queen Alexis is my YouTube channel and my Twitch channel. I stream on both. And we have another episode on Wednesday in the Lorebeards, and I'm stupid excited.
And I also show up every Monday with Vera to do Lorebeards and role-playing, so you can catch us there. But thank you so much for joining us today. And remember, in the grim darkness of... Oh, almost.
Ah, dang it, you beat me to it. You go.
In the grim darkness of the far future.
There is only lore.
Thank you, everybody. Cheers.
All right. Love you guys. Bye.